Chapter 3111. Emerald Stone. The immortal pillar's roots were extremely thick and dense, and the distribution of its veins was very complicated. The moment the immortal pillar fell to the ground, Zhuowen saw at a glance that at the bottom of the immortal pillar's complex roots there was a stone that was emitting emerald light. The stone was about half the size of a palm and had an irregular shape. The surface of the stone was flowing with emerald veins and light. If one looked carefully, the veins on the surface of the emerald stone seemed to contain some kind of law, ancient and mysterious. The moment he saw the emerald stone, Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a strange light. However, Zhuowen quickly regained his composure. Pang Yong and the others did not see Zhuowen's strange state. All of their attention was firmly attracted by the emerald stone wrapped in the roots. There really is an emerald stone, and such a big one at that. We're rich. Pang Yong and the other four's breathing became rapid. They stared at the emerald stone, wrapped tightly in the roots with fervent eyes. Immediately, they rushed up in unison and used the weapons in their hands to cut the roots on the immortal pillar. Zhuowen silently watched the movements of Pang Yong and the other four, but he was lost in thought. The moment the emerald stone wrapped in the roots of the immortal pillar appeared, his original body in the great world discovered that the mysterious stone obtained from the blood prison's secret chamber was emitting a blazing light. At that moment, a mysterious energy gushed out from the mysterious stone and spread out like a wave. Many things in the great world were destroyed by this mysterious energy. Even his original body, the Phoenix People's Sanus, and the others spat out a mouthful of blood and suffered serious injuries when this mysterious energy approached them. What the hell is this stone of yours? In the great world, the Phoenix People's Saintess looked at the mysterious stone in his original body's hand with fear in her beautiful eyes. This mysterious stone had only emitted a trace of fluctuation, but it had caused her to suffer serious injuries. If the mysterious stone were to completely erupt, wouldn't the entire world be destroyed? None of the living beings in the world would be spared. Zhuowen ignored the furious saintess of the Phoenix people. Instead, he rebuilt an elegant pavilion on the island in the middle of the lake. He carefully put away the mysterious stone and entered the house, leaving behind the saintess of the Phoenix people, who was still sulking. Outside the outside world, Zhuowen's clone revealed a thoughtful look. He still hadn't figured out the origins of that mysterious stone. Back then, he had relied on the mysterious energy within the mysterious stone to enter an extremely profound state of comprehension. His alchemy and array Dao had both advanced to the creation realm. How terrifying was that ability? Now, the mysterious stone, which had not moved at all, actually had a different reaction. And all of this was because of the jade stone that had appeared under the immortal pillar. Zhuowen didn't know anything about this jade stone, but from the expressions of Pang Yong and the others, he could tell that this jade stone was something very precious in the slaughter heavenly realm. Bang! Pang Yong split open the last rhizome and took out the jade stone with his right hand. His eyes were filled with excitement and ecstasy. The other four people also surrounded Pang Yong. Their eyes were fixed on the jade stone wrapped in the rhizome, and they were full of praise. Such a big jade stone. I'm afraid there are only a few in the Tiani tribe. Lena's beautiful eyes were full of splendor. Pang Yong laughed and said, "Of course, we're so lucky this time. After this jade stone is auctioned, all of us will have a share." The other four people were naturally overjoyed when they saw that Pang Yong had an equal share. They didn't have any objections. As Pang Yong spoke, he looked at Zhuowen, who was deep in thought not far away, and said with a smile, "Brother Zhua, it's also thanks to you that we can get the jade stone this time. When the time comes, we will also share a part of the reward with you." Zhuowen came back to his senses, looked at Pang Yong, and said in surprise, "Brother Pang, I don't think I helped you. Are you willing to share a part of the reward with me?" Pang Yong patted his chest and said, "Everything has a first come, first serve. You found the immortal pillar first, so I can't take advantage of you. This jade stone can be sold at a good price, so you will definitely have a share." Zhuowen cupped his hands and thanked him, but in his heart, he was thinking about the relationship between the jade stone and the mysterious stone on his body. If he could take out the mysterious stone, now he would definitely borrow the jade stone from Pang Yong, but now it was obviously not possible. "By the way, Brother Pang, this jade stone and the jade water in the immortal pillar, do they have any use in the slaughter heavenly realm? I saw that you were very excited when you saw the jade water and the jade stone." Zhuowen asked out of curiosity. Pang Yong also knew that Zhuowen had just come to the slaughter heavenly realm, so he didn't laugh at Zhuowen's naive question. Brother Zhua, come back with us to the Tiani tribe first. I will tell you about the slaughter heavenly realm and the jade stone on the way. Also, your clothes are not good. They are too delicate and new. If you enter the tribe, you will be easily excluded by others. That is not a good thing for you. Pang Yong pointed at Zhuowen's clothes and guided him. Zhuowen nodded and tore his clothes into tatters. He smeared the yellow sand on the ground on the tattered clothes, making them look a lot shabbier. Pang Yong nodded with satisfaction and opened a water bag from the cart. He took the small kettle from his waist, filled it with the jade water in the water bag, and threw it to Zhuowen. Brother Zhua, in the slaughter heavenly realm, all the harsh environments can be fatal. Even if you are a master of the heavenly realm, if you don't drink water for a long time in this wasteland, you may die of thirst. Zhuowen took the kettle, thanked Pang Yong, opened the kettle, and drank it in one gulp. Suddenly, a sweet and mellow coldness entered his mouth, followed his esophagus, and entered his stomach. After he finished drinking, Zhuowen handed the kettle back to Pang Yong reluctantly. His previous guess was right. The jade water extracted from the immortal pillar did contain heavenly energy, but the amount was too little. According to Zhuowen's estimation, even if he drank all the jade water in the cart, he could only recover 1/10 of the energy he had lost. It could be seen that it was not realistic to rely on the jade water to recover. However, using the jade water to quench his thirst was the best choice. Next, Zhuowen followed Pang Yong's team and walked towards the Tiani tribe. On the way, Pang Yong told Zhuowen in detail about the distribution of forces in the slaughter heavenly realm and the use of the jade stone and jade water. What the slaughter heavenly realm lacked the most was heavenly energy. The air did not contain any level of energy, but the various creatures that grew in the slaughter heavenly realm contained a certain amount of heavenly energy. For example, the jade water flowing from the immortal pillar was the best example. The immortal pillar was a plant. In the slaughter heavenly realm, there were also powerful slaughter beasts. The slaughter beasts were a kind of crazy creature that only knew how to kill and had no intelligence. Once they saw a living creature, they would relentlessly pursue and kill. Chapter 31:12. Shifting the blame in the massacre heavenly domain, there were many killer beasts, but they were extremely dangerous. Furthermore, killer beasts usually moved in groups. Once one of them was provoked, it would attract a group of killer beasts. In the massacre heavenly domain, very few people could survive in a group of killer beasts. On the other hand, there were very few plants in the massacre heavenly domain. In the massacre heavenly domain, not only could green blood and green water be extracted from the killer beasts and plants, green stones could also be extracted from them. The so-called green stones were stones that contained heavenly energy. The green stones were the source of green water and green blood, which contained heavenly energy in the killer beasts and plants. For example, in the celestial pillar's roots, there was a green stone. There were many cultivators in the Massacre Heavenly Domain. They were scattered in various places in the Massacre Heavenly Domain, forming tribes. Naturally, there were strong and weak tribes. The stronger tribes had a population of thousands, while the weaker tribes only had 100 people. Some even had only a few dozen people. The Tiani tribe that Pang Yong belonged to was only a small tribe in the Massacre Heavenly Domain. There were only about 50 people in it. Zhuowen also knew why Pang Yong was so enthusiastic towards him. It was probably to recruit him into the Tiani tribe. Brother Pang, you said that the green stones in the Massacre Heavenly Domain are similar to the Heavenly Tao origin crystals in the outside world. That is to say, in the Massacre Heavenly Domain, cultivators can use the green stones to cultivate. Zhuowen looked at the green stone in Pang Yong's hand and could not help but ask. Pang Yong shook his head and said, Brother Zhua, you are wrong. This green stone does contain a large amount of heavenly energy, but it cannot be absorbed by us. If we forcefully absorb it, it will become a deadly poison. Back then, there was a cultivator who did not believe in heresy. When he saw that the green stone had such rich heavenly energy, he forcefully absorbed the energy in the green stone. In less than half a minute, his face turned green, and he fell to the ground, dead. There's actually such a thing? This green stone does not seem to show any signs of poison. Zhuowen stared and said in surprise. Pang Yong smiled bitterly and said, It's precisely because I can't see the toxicity that it's strange. This is also the reason why we didn't dare to use the emerald stone and planned to sell it back to the Tiani tribe. This jade stone can't be absorbed directly. Could it be that there are other uses? Zhuowen asked curiously. Other than not being able to absorb it directly, there is only one use for these jade stones, which is for a god formation master to use the corresponding jade stones to form a heavenly Tao formation. The Heaven's Path formation will extract the Heaven's Path energy from within the jade stone and diffuse it into the air to create an external environment. Although it's completely incomparable to the outside world, it allows cultivators within the Heavenly Tao formation to cultivate to a certain extent. In the Massacre Heavenly Domain, there are several powerful beings at the level of Heaven Master. They possess most of the jade stones and use them to build luxurious palaces. They also set up many Heavenly Tao formations in the palaces. It is said that the cultivation environment in the palaces of these great powers is almost the same as the outside world. If I was lucky enough to enter such a place to cultivate, perhaps I would have broken through long ago. I wouldn't have to work so hard to find jade stones and jade stones outside. At this point, Pang Yong revealed a trace of a bitter smile and muttered to himself. Zhuowen was silent. He could understand Pang Yong's feelings very well. The latter had told him about the situation of most of the cultivators in the Massacre Heavenly Domain. Here, everything was based on strength. Although there was no Heaven's Path energy here, if one wanted to cultivate, they had to enter the Heavenly Tao formation to cultivate. Although the Tiani tribe was only a small tribe, they also had a Heavenly Tao formation. However, the Heavenly Tao formation covered a very small area. If the cultivators of the Tiani tribe wanted to enter the Heavenly Tao formation to cultivate, they had to pay a corresponding price. Jadestone, and jadestone were hard currencies in this world. They could be used as currency. Pang Yong had told Zhuowen that the jadestone they obtained this time was not small. It could be exchanged for 3 days of cultivation in the Heavenly Tao formation. On average, the 6 of them could cultivate for half a day in these 3 days. Half a day was enough for them to recover more than half of their cultivation. In this world, strength was too important. If one did not have strength, not only would they be easily bullied or even killed, but they would also not be able to go out to find jade stones. The strong became stronger, and the weak became weaker. This law was vividly displayed here. Whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, 5 air-piercing sounds rang out. Pang Yong, who was originally talking to Zhuowen, groaned. His waist was pierced by an arrow. This arrow was originally aimed at the vital point between Pang Yong's eyebrows. However, Pang Yong's reaction was faster and avoided the vital point, so the arrow finally pierced through his waist. Other than Pang Yong, the other 4 people were also shot by arrows. Among them, a skinny man did not react in time. The vital point between his eyebrows was pierced by an arrow, and he died on the spot. As for the other 3 people, other than Lena, who was slightly injured, the other 2 were seriously injured and bleeding profusely. Although Zhuowen was standing next to Pang Yong, he was not targeted by the arrows. He stood next to Pang Yong unscathed. However, Zhuowen's gaze landed on Lena's body. He could clearly see that the other 4 arrows were aimed at the vital points of Pang Yong and the others. Only Lena's arrow was not aimed at the vital points. Instead, it was aimed at his left arm. Zhuowen's gaze revealed a contemplative look. He took another look at Lena. "Who is it?" Pang Yong's gaze was gloomy as he looked forward. He saw a small hill in front of him. The 5 arrows were shot from behind the small hill. "Pang Yong, your harvest this time is not bad. You actually obtained so much jadestone water. It seems that I didn't wait here in vain." A sinister and harsh voice sounded. Immediately, 5 men walked out from under the small hill. These 5 men all carried stone bows on their backs. The leader was a skinny middle-aged man with a large stone saber hanging from his waist. "Yuan, it's actually you. How did you know our whereabouts?" The moment Pang Yong saw the skinny man, his expression changed slightly. Pang Yong seemed to have thought of something. He could not help but look at Zhuowen and coldly said, "Zhuowen, did you betray us?" As he spoke, Pang Yong's right hand moved like lightning. Holding the stone axe, he suddenly chopped towards Zhuowen. The wind whistled. Zhuowen stomped his right foot and retreated more than 10 meters, dodging Pang Yong's attack. He said in a deep voice, "Brother Pang, calm down. This has nothing to do with me. I just entered the slaughter heaven domain. I don't know these people at all. Moreover, I don't know much about the slaughter heaven domain. Do you think it's possible for me to do it? Other than you, who else could it be? Yuan and the others shot 5 arrows. The 5 of us were all injured, but you were fine." Chapter 31:13. Instant Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and stared coldly at Lena, who was distorting right and wrong. He finally understood why the arrow shot at Lena had only lightly injured her. It was likely that Lena was the real spy. Lena had suddenly accused him, clearly intending to make him the scapegoat. Zhuowen did not continue to explain. He knew that Pang Yong had already suspected him and had even attacked him. Continuing to explain would only tarnish his reputation. Lena's words confirmed Pang Yong's suspicions. He was already certain that the culprit who had exposed their whereabouts was Zhuowen. Yuan and the others quietly watched Pang Yong and Zhuowen. They had only prepared 5 arrows, and Zhuowen was just an unexpected factor, so they did not include him. And now, this unexpected factor could be used as a scapegoat for Lena. To Yuan and the others, this was simply a pleasant surprise. "Die for me." Pang Yong's anger surged. Wielding the stone axe in his right hand, he quickly ran over and viciously chopped down at Zhuowen's neck. Zhuowen's gaze was cold. Instead of retreating, he took a step forward with his right foot. His body instantly tilted, and the stone axe swept past his side. Pang Yong had been hit by the arrow and was severely injured. At this moment, his movements were extremely slow in Zhuowen's eyes. It was simply too easy for Zhuowen to dodge the axe. Bang! The instant he dodged the stone axe, Zhuowen's right hand clenched into a fist and smashed into Pang Yong's chest. He did not use his full strength, only a small portion of his strength. Even so, Pang Yong was sent flying, spitting out a mouthful of blood. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Pang Yong fell to the ground and looked at Zhuowen in horror. Although he had spent more time in the massacre sky domain than Zhuowen, and his cultivation had regressed, he could still enter the tribe's heavenly Tao formation to cultivate when he occasionally reaped some benefits outside. His current strength was comparable to Lord Xuanji's early-stage strength. Although his abdomen had been pierced by an arrow and his strength had decreased, it should not have decreased by too much. It should have been more than enough to deal with the newcomer in front of him. However, he did not expect that he would be knocked to the ground in one move. Zhuowen was currently manifesting the bloodline of King Devourer. His cultivation base was at the Eternal Overlord realm, one level higher than Pang Yong. However, Devourer King had the innate ability of devouring. When he entered the Massacre Celestial Domain, he used the power of devouring to devour his Eternal Overlord aura, making his cultivation base appear very low. If Pang Yong had known that Zhuowen was an Eternal Overlord, he probably wouldn't have overestimated himself and attacked Zhuowen. In Pang Yong's team, Lina and the other two were dumbfounded. So this guy had been hiding his strength all along. He was actually this strong. Yuan Yin's gaze turned solemn as he said in a deep voice, "Friend, my name is Yuan Yin. My target this time is only Pang Yong and the others. You are unrelated, so we won't make things difficult for you. You can leave on your own." Zhuowen raised his head slightly, looked at Yuan Yin, and said indifferently, "You can let me leave, but I want all the jade water and jade stone on this cart. Also, you have to give me a map to the Tian-E tribe." "What did you say? I dare you to say it again." Yuan Yin's expression became extremely unfriendly as he stared coldly at Zhuowen. Obviously, Zhuowen's words had thoroughly angered him. Originally, he had planned to let this person go. After all, judging from his performance just now, this person's strength was not ordinary. Moreover, he was unrelated, so there was no need for him to offend him. But now, this person was demanding an exorbitant price. Did he really think that he, Yuan Yin, was afraid of him? Zhuowen ignored Yuan Yin and walked straight to the cart. In the Massacre Celestial Domain, the jade water was as important as a water source in the mortal world. It was extremely important to mortals. He did not know how long he would have to walk in this wilderness. Without the jade water, he could only wait for death. Therefore, he had to have the jade water. "You're courting death." A man beside Yuan Yin snorted coldly. He pulled out a stone knife from his waist and rushed towards Zhuowen. "You're too greedy. Originally, our boss wanted to let you go, but since you're courting death, there's no other way. Now, let me, Chen-Yi, kill you." The man's voice was full of killing intent. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a fist quickly enlarged in front of his eyes, and then fiercely smashed into his face. Bang! The man screamed. The stone knife in his hand was thrown away. He flew out in a sorry state and heavily smashed into the ground. Zhuowen caught the stone knife and fiercely threw it out. The moment the man hit the ground, the stone knife stabbed into the man's chest, firmly nailing him to the ground. Zhuowen did not even look at the man, who was nailed to the ground. He continued to walk towards the cart. His expression was calm, as if he was not the one who had attacked just now. "It has always been me, Yuan Yin, who killed people. No one has ever dared to kill my people. For killing my people, I will make you regret living in this world." Yuan Yin was furious. He pulled out the stone bow from his back, took out an arrow, pulled it into a full moon, and shot it at Zhuowen. The three people beside Yuan Yin did the same. They all took out their stone bows and shot their own arrows. Swoosh, 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 for arrows flew out, emitting a mysterious light in the air. They were all aimed at Zhuowen's vital points. Zhuowen waved his sleeve, and 4 black holes appeared behind him. The 4 arrows were all swallowed by the black holes. At the same time, Zhuowen came back like a cheetah. Before Yuan Yin could react, his fist smashed into Yuan Yin's chest and directly penetrated it. Yuan Yin's cultivation was about the same as Zhuowen's. He was just Lord Xuanji, which was much lower than his King Devourer bloodline. Naturally, his combat strength could not be compared to Zhuowen's. Zhuowen lifted the dying Yuan Yin with his left hand. His right hand pulled out the stone knife at his waist and threw it behind him. The knife light was biting cold, flashing with a mysterious light. The 3 people who wanted to sneak attack Zhuowen did not even have time to react. Deep, bloody wounds appeared between their roars. Puchi, the 3 people's movements were strangely stiff. Then, blood spurted out from their necks. Finally, they fell to the ground. However, the 3 of them were not dead. Their souls were still intact. But the massacre celestial domain was different from the outside world. There was no heavenly energy here, so cultivators could not absorb it to heal their wounds. But if a cultivator was seriously injured and lost too much blood, they would be too weak to move. Eventually, their bodies would wither, and their souls would not be spared. Zhuowen did not plan to kill the 3 people. Instead, he threw Yuan Yin to the ground. Yuan Yin was in so much pain that he almost vomited. His body twitched, and his eyes were filled with fear. He shouted, "Sir, please don't kill me. I'll listen to you." Puchi. Unfortunately, what responded to Yuan Yin was the cold and merciless stone saber. Zhuowen looked at Yuan Yin, who had been pierced through by the stone knife and had fallen to the ground dead. There was no pity in his eyes. The moment he entered the massacre celestial domain, he knew that this place was crueler than the outside world. The rules of survival were more naked. Chapter 31:14. Tian-E Triben. Less than 10 breaths of time. Yuan Yin and the other 4 were all dealt with by Zhuowen. Pang Yong and the other 4 were all stunned. Pang Yong was so scared that he was trembling. Ignoring his injuries, he took out the jade stone from his arms. Zhuowen's brows furrowed slightly. The battle just now had actually consumed a full 10% of his energy. Adding the energy he had consumed during the journey, he only had 80% of his energy left. Zhuowen sighed in his heart. In the massacre celestial domain, the energy he consumed was a thing of the past. If he did not replenish his energy as soon as possible, he would soon become a powerless mortal due to the exhaustion of his energy. Master Zhuo, this jade stone was originally discovered by you. It should be yours. The jade water in the cart is also yours. We do not want a single drop. It was my fault for offending you just now. If you want to kill me or cut me up, please do so. I only beg Master Zhuo to let my friends go. Pang Yong knelt in front of Zhuowen and quickly kowtowed. His tone was low and sincere. Zhuowen looked deeply at Pang Yong. This Pang Yong was a man who knew how to adapt to circumstances. After seeing such a strong display of strength, he immediately offered up the jade stone. Moreover, his words were sincere and humble. Even if Pang Yong's actions were excessive, most people would feel better and would not pursue the matter. Zhuowen took the jade stone and put it in his sleeve. He said lightly, "This jade stone is useful to me, so it would be impolite for me to refuse. As for the jade water, I only need 1 bag. You can take the rest." Hearing this, Pang Yong looked at Zhuowen in surprise. Immediately, he said gratefully, "Thank you, Master Zhuo. We will always remember your kindness." Lina and the other 2 followed Pang Yong and knelt in front of Zhuowen. Their expressions were full of respect. You also know that I am a newcomer and know nothing about the slaughter, heavenly domain. Therefore, I plan to follow you to the Tian-E tribe. Let's continue our journey. Zhuowen said. Naturally, Pang Yong and the others did not dare to refuse. They repeatedly expressed their willingness to take Zhuowen to the Tian-E tribe. Before I leave, I need to ask Miss Lena a question. Suddenly, Zhuowen looked at Lena, who had a slightly cowering expression. The latter was startled when she heard Zhuowen call her name, but she quickly composed herself and forced a smile. I wonder what Lord Zhuo wants to ask me. Didn't Pang Yong say it already? Your whereabouts must have been exposed by someone. Do you still think I exposed your whereabouts? Zhuowen asked casually. Pang Yong's eyes flickered as he thought of something. He couldn't help but look at Lena. Pang Yong's gaze sharpened when he discovered that Lena was only slightly injured. Lena's expression stiffened. She stared fixedly at Zhuowen, then lowered her head and said, Lord Chua, you're new here after all. It's impossible for you to know Yuan Yin and the others. Oh, I see. Since it's not me, who do you think it is? Zhuowen continued to ask. Lena forced a smile and said, I'm not sure. Yes, if you're not sure, then I'm even less sure. Brother Pang, don't you think so? Zhuowen laughed. Pang Yong cupped his fists towards Zhuowen and said, Thank you for your reminder, Lord Chua. After he finished speaking, Pang Yong swung his stone axe at Lena like an enraged beast. Lena held her stone spear with both hands and quickly retreated. Big Brother Pang, what do you mean by this? Lena shouted as she retreated. Don't you know what I mean? Lena, I've always trusted you. Ever since you joined my team, I've never mistreated you. Why are you colluding with Yuan Yin? Pang Yong's eyes were bloodshot. He didn't care about the injury on his waist and swung his stone axe at Lena with both hands. Bang! 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 Although Pang Yong's injuries weren't light, his strength was much stronger than Lena's. After a dozen rounds, Lena revealed a flaw and her hands were chopped off by the axe. Lena screamed, but it was only for a moment. The stone axe flew out like lightning and chopped off Lena's head. Puchi, after killing Lena, Pang Yong knelt on the ground with one knee. His right hand was clutching the wound on his abdomen. Blood was flowing out from the wound, and when the blood dripped onto the ground, it immediately evaporated. Big Brother Pang. The remaining two people, a man and a woman, hurried to Pang Yong's side with a water bag. The woman put Pang Yong down and rested his head on her thighs. The man opened the water bag and poured out the green water from the bag onto Pang Yong's wound. Zhuowen was surprised to find that the moment the green water dripped onto Pang Yong's wound, the bleeding stopped and the wound quickly formed a scab. Lord Zhuo, this green water is the most precious thing in the slaughter heavenly realm. Not only can it solve the problem of hunger and thirst, but it can also heal external injuries. Pang Yong rested for a while and stood up. Seeing Zhuowen's thoughtful expression, she explained to Zhuowen. However, as you can see, the green water and green stones are extremely rare in the slaughter heavenly realm. Both of them are consumables, so in the slaughter heavenly realm, there are often cultivators who kill each other because of these two things. Yuan Yin is one of them. Zhuowen nodded. He had already realized how important the green stones and green water were. Pang Yong and the others rested for a while before continuing their journey. According to Pang Yong, the Tian-E tribe wasn't far from here. It was only half a day's journey. Sure enough, half a day later, Zhuowen stood on a small slope and looked into the distance. He saw a small tribe about 700 to 800 meters in front of him. This small tribe was surrounded by a defense circle made of wooden frames and dense thorns. It could be said that this defense circle was very primitive. Other than in the mortal world, it was impossible to have such a simple defense in the cultivation world. After all, there were countless formations in the cultivation world. Divine weapons were invincible. Any kind of ordinary defense formation was hundreds or thousands of times stronger than this primitive defense. However, thinking about the F***-ket-up environment of the slaughter heavenly realm, Zhuowen could only shrug helplessly. The Tiani tribe was indeed not big. The population was at most 60 people, and most of them were weaker than Pang Yong. With Pang Yong's cultivation, he could be considered a great expert in the Tiani tribe. Pang Yong's position in the Tiani tribe was quite high. When they entered the tribe, the guards at the gate respectfully invited Pang Yong and the others in. "Lord Zhua, you are so powerful. If you are willing to join our Tiani tribe, you will at least be a deputy minister." After entering the tribe, Pang Yong looked at Zhuowen with shining eyes and invited Zhuowen to join the Tiani tribe. Zhuowen had a headache. Along the way, Pang Yong had invited him to join the Tiani tribe many times, but he had declined. Now that he mentioned it again, Zhuowen's face darkened. Chapter 31:15. Formation, Brother Pang, arrange a place for me to stay. Also, didn't you say that your Tiani tribe also has a heavenly Tao array? Do I have to use a jade stone to use the heavenly Tao array formation? Zhuowen asked. When Zhuowen discovered that the green stone was resonating with the mysterious stone in the great world, he had a feeling that the green stone was very important and would be very useful to the mysterious stone. He had to collect this jade stone and not use it carelessly. Pang Yong hurriedly said, "Lord Zhua, rest assured. I'll help you settle the matter of accommodation. As for the heavenly Tao array formation, other than the jade stone, there is another method. That is, you must be a powerful divine formation master. The operation of the heavenly array requires a divine formation master to maintain. The previous divine formation master of our Tiani tribe was recruited by the Luyun tribe. Now, there is no divine formation master of our Tiani tribe. The lifespan of the tribe's heavenly Tao formation is almost up. If we don't have a new divine formation master to maintain it, the tribe's heavenly Tao formation will soon decline. At that time, I'm afraid everyone in the Tiani tribe will leave." At this point, Pang Yong's expression dimmed. In the massacre heavenly domain, if a tribe did not have a heavenly Tao formation, all the cultivators in the tribe would be reduced to mortals. No one would be willing to stay in such a tribe. I know a thing or two about formations. If your department head doesn't mind, I can give it a try. However, the prerequisite is that the heavenly Tao formation must be open to me for free. Zhuowen said indifferently. Pang Yong was stunned. At first, he was stunned for a while. Then he revealed an expression of wild joy. He looked at Zhuowen and said, "Master Zhua, you really know array Tao? Are you a divine array master?" "Yes, I am indeed a divine array master." "I wonder what level the heavenly array formation of your tribe is." Zhuowen nodded. Pang Yong rubbed his head and said, "I know nothing about array formations. I heard from the head that our tribe's heavenly Tao array formation seems to be heavenly Tao grade." Zhuowen looked at Pang Yong speechlessly. He had always thought that the heavenly law array formation in these tribes was very awesome. After all, it was an array formation that could produce heavenly law energy in a place like the slaughter heavenly domain, which was abandoned by the heavens. Now that he heard that it was only a heavenly Tao level array formation, Zhuowen was speechless. If it's really just a heavenly Tao formation, I think I'm completely capable of handling it. Zhuowen said helplessly, "That's great. If the minister knew that you are a God array master, he would definitely be very happy. However, the minister should still be at the Flowing Cloud tribe. I'm afraid you won't be able to see the minister in person yet." Pang Yong said, "Then who's in charge of the tribe now?" You can just tell him that I'm a divine formation master. I want to take a look at the heavenly Tao formation first." Zhuowen said, "That's not a problem. Lord Zhua, I'll arrange your accommodation first. After that, I will have to report to the person in charge. As long as the person in charge agrees, you can go and take a look at the Heavens Path formation." Next, Pang Yong arranged the best room for Zhuowen apart from the upper echelons of the tribe. Of course, the so-called best room was a very simple and crude thatched hut. Compared to the cultivators in the tribe who could only sleep on the ground, this thatched hut was indeed a very good place to stay. Pang Yong and Zhuowen greeted each other, then closed the door again and left to report to the person in charge of the tribe. Zhuowen sat quietly in the room, sorting out the various information he heard from Pang Yong. He also had a rough understanding of the massacre heavenly domain. Zhuowen asked very carefully about the distribution of forces in the massacre heavenly domain. The division of forces in the massacre heavenly domain was very simple. Most of them existed in the form of tribes. The strength of the tribes was also divided into 3 levels. They were the big tribes, the middle tribes, and the small tribes. The big tribes had a population of more than 1,000 people, and they ruled over many middle tribes. The middle tribes had a population of more than 100 people, and there were many small tribes under them. The worst was the case. The population of the small tribes was basically less than 100 people. Some small tribes only had a few people, and they could be wiped out at any time. In addition, there was another force that was above the tribes. That was the God City. It was said that every God City in the massacre heavenly domain was built by the masters of the heaven-piercing realm. The God City gathered almost all the resources in the massacre heavenly domain. Within the jurisdiction of the God City, all the tribes had to pay a certain amount of jade stones every year. If they did not pay enough, then the tribe would be wiped out by the masters of the God City. The rules of the massacre heavenly domain were simple and violent. The strong ruled supreme. Pang Yong said that there were only 3 God Cities in the massacre heavenly domain, and each of them was guarded by the masters of the heaven-piercing realm. Of course, there used to be a 4th God City, but the master of the 4th God City entered the forbidden area of the massacre heavenly domain. It was said that he successfully left the massacre heavenly domain and entered the eldritch heavenly domain. Of course, these were all rumors. Whether they were true or not had yet to be verified. Zhuowen had asked Pang Yong where the forbidden area of the massacre heavenly domain was, but Pang Yong knew nothing about it. It was said that the forbidden area was a secret of the massacre heavenly domain, and only the master of the God City knew its exact location. In other words, if Zhuowen wanted to know the location of the forbidden area, he would have to meet the master of the God City. How troublesome! I only wanted to go to the eldritch heavenly domain, but I was tricked. Who did I offend? Zhuowen complained. Thinking back to how he had been tricked by the Black King when he had guessed 10,000 riddles, Zhuowen felt very unbalanced. If he were to become stronger, he would definitely go back and find the Black King to settle the score. After a while, Pang Yong returned with news that the person in charge of the tribe was very interested in him and was willing to meet him. Very quickly, Pang Yong brought Zhuowen to the core of the tribe, which was the residence of the head of the tribe. The residence of the head of the tribe was a large thatched hut. It only had 1 floor, and its appearance was similar to a yurt. Lord Zhua, the heavenly law array formation, is inside. The person in charge, Lord Ghost Girl, is also waiting for you inside. Pang Yong pointed at the huge, thatched hut in front of them. You're not coming in with me? Zhuowen asked. Lord Ghost Girl said that only you can enter. No one else is allowed to enter. Pang Yong laughed bitterly. Zhuowen nodded and entered the thatched hut. The thatched hut was very spacious and had a complete set of facilities. In the center of the hut, a green stream of light flashed, as if countless fireflies were hovering around it. Zhuowen immediately saw the orderly arrangement of jade stones within the green stream of light. He knew that this should be the heavenly law array formation that Peng Yong had mentioned. The moment he saw the heavenly law array formation, Zhuowen shook his head inwardly. Chapter 31:16. Yu Nioibo studio beside the heavenly Tao array, Zhuowen saw a graceful figure. She looked to be about 25 years old, and her slender legs were particularly eye-catching. Although this woman was wearing ordinary linen, the linen was woven neatly and uniquely, giving off a solemn and dignified feeling. Zhuowen looked at the girl from head to toe. He found that she had a pair of beautiful blue eyes and a pair of small and delicate ears that pointed up. She looked like the fairy from the legends of Zhuowen's previous life. "You must be the Zhuowen that Peng Yong mentioned." "I am Yu Nioibo Studio, the temporary leader of the Tian-E tribe." Yu Nioibo Studio stretched out her hand with a gentle smile on her face. Zhuowen shook hands with Yu Nioibo Studio and said, "Yu Nioibo Studio, may I ask you something? Are you not a human?" Yu Nioibo Studio was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "It seems that Peng Yong was right. You are a newcomer." "To tell you the truth, in the massacre heavens, the number of humans is much smaller than the number of foreign races. It's just that the Tian-E tribe was formed by humans. Moreover, in the massacre heavens, most of the large tribes are foreign races. There are very few large human tribes. If it weren't for the fact that one of the 3 divine cities is the base of a powerful human expert, the human race in the massacre heavens would have been completely wiped out by the foreign races." Speaking up to this point, Ghost Girl continued, "And I'm from the elf race, which is considered an insignificant race among the countless races in the primitive heaven realm. Back then, I was indebted to the minister for saving my life. So I joined the Tian-E tribe." Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. It seemed that the human race's situation in the massacre heavens wasn't good. However, with the enmity between the human race and the foreign races, there was bound to be some conflict. Zhuowen wasn't surprised by Yu Nioibo Studio's words. "Peng Yong told me that you are a divine array master. May I know what level your array Tao is at?" Yu Nioibo Studio suddenly asked. "Some time ago, my formation skills had just broken through to the creation level. Now, I can be considered a creation level divine formation master," Zhuowen said. Yu Nu's eyes widened as she stared at Zhuowen in disbelief. "You're saying you're a creation grade divine array master?" It should be known that the previous array master of the Tian-E tribe was only at the heavenly Tao level. The heavenly Tao level was the first realm of the first step of Tao validation, while the creation level was the second realm of the third step of Tao validation. Even in the Xianmi heavenly domain, where the Tao of formations prevailed, such a powerful array Tao master was probably very rare and held a very high position. In the massacre heavenly domain, there was no such high-level array god master. Even in the 3 divine cities, there was no creation-level array god master. "Zhuowen, you're not joking, are you?" Ghost Girl's tone was filled with suspicion. Zhuowen was taken aback. Judging from Ghost Girl's suspicious tone, he realized that his words might have been inappropriate. "Ha, I'm just joking. In fact, my array Tao level is only at the primordial Tao level. I'm only slightly stronger than your previous array Tao master," Zhuowen said with a relaxed smile. Ghost Girl looked at Zhuowen seriously, but she didn't see anything wrong with the latter. She could only sigh softly. "Zhuowen, it's best not to do this kind of thing in the future, especially in those big tribes, because others will think that you're cheating. As for the consequences of deceit, they often have to pay a bloody price. The massacre heavenly domain is much crueler than your Xianmi heavenly domain. Most of the people here don't have a heart of mercy. If you say something wrong, they will kill you. Thank you for your reminder, Ghost Girl. I'll remember your words. Zhuowen's eyes were cautious. Ghost Girl's reaction reminded him that in this place he couldn't reveal too many of his trump cards. Otherwise, it might lead to unimaginable consequences. But since you're a primordial Tao master, you'll be very useful to our Tianyi tribe. If you join the Tianyi tribe, you'll be on the same level as me. You'll only be below the minister. Ghost Girl smiled sweetly like a delicate flower. She looked at Zhuowen with her bright eyes. We'll discuss this when the minister of your tribe comes back. I'll help you rearrange the heavenly Tao array first. By the way, Brother Pang should have told you my conditions. Zhuowen looked at Ghost Girl and said. Ghost Girl nodded and said, I know. As long as you can maintain the heavenly Tao array, you'll have the privilege of freely entering and exiting the heavenly Tao array. Hearing this, Zhuowen looked satisfied. Then he walked in front of the heavenly Tao array and walked around it. He stared at the array's trajectory. The more he observed, the more disappointed Zhuowen became. The heavenly Tao array was so simple that he couldn't bear to look at it. With Zhuowen's array formation skills, he could casually set up an array formation that was much better than this. However, Zhuowen didn't do anything. There were no heavenly Tao origin crystals in the massacre heavenly domain. He couldn't even take out the array disk. From the way the heavenly Tao array was set up, it was obvious that the array Tao master in the massacre heavenly domain used the jade stones as the array disk. Ghost Girl, how many jade stones do you have in your tribe? Zhuowen asked Ghost Girl. There aren't many jade stones. There are about 100 of them. Ghost Girl said. Good. Bring me 36 jade stones. I'll rearrange the heavenly Tao array. The heavenly Tao array I set up this time won't have any flaws. When the energy of the jade stones in the heavenly Tao array is depleted, there's no need for the array Tao master to maintain it. You only need to place the jade stones in the corresponding position to reactivate the array, Zhuowen said in a deep voice. What, 36 jade stones? Ghost Girl exclaimed in shock. Right now, the heavenly Tao array formation in their tribe only needed 12 jade stones. However, the array formation that Zhuowen had modified actually required 36 jade stones. This consumption was simply too astonishing. However, the fact that Zhuowen didn't need the array Tao master to maintain the array in the future was very tempting to her and the entire tribe. Don't worry. The array I modified will last much longer than your crude array disk. Moreover, the heavenly Tao energy within the jade stones will be much more efficient. Trust me, this will definitely be beneficial to the future development of your tribe, Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Ghost Girl saw the seriousness in Zhuowen's eyes and hesitated. In the end, she gritted her teeth and decided to trust Zhuowen this time. After a while, Ghost Girl returned with 36 jade stones and handed them to Zhuowen. The moment Zhuowen took the 36 emerald stones, the emerald stones suddenly burst out with a green light, which instantly drowned Zhuowen. And in the great world, the mysterious stone that had already calmed down suddenly began to emit even more terrifying fluctuations at this moment. Chapter 31:17. Changes in the outside world. The main body of the human race, the Phoenix people Sanus, and the others were once again thrown into the lake by the powerful shockwave. The buildings on the island in the center of the lake were smashed into pieces. Boom! The vast and boundless lake suddenly exploded with a splash of water that soared into the sky like a terrifying water dragon. The water splashed everywhere, and at the top of the water dragon, a mysterious stone was suspended in the air above the lake. The mysterious stone's surface looked ordinary, but at this moment, dense mysterious patterns appeared on the surface of the stone, emitting a mysterious light. Terrifying shockwaves rippled out from the mysterious stone and spread out in all directions. In the lake, Zhuowen's main body saw that the mysterious stone was causing such a huge commotion, and he immediately thought of the 36 jade stones in the hands of his clone in the outside world. The reason why the mysterious stone was so violent was probably because it had something to do with the jade stone. "Zhuowen, what's wrong?" The Phoenix people's sanest expression was very ugly, and she coldly looked at Zhuowen and questioned him. Zhuowen did not speak. He looked at the mysterious stone suspended in the air, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. Suddenly, the mysterious stone broke through the air, and under his stunned gaze, the mysterious stone slammed into the space at the edge of the outside world. Bang, bang, bang. The outside world shook violently, and the entire sky and earth trembled. Every time the mysterious stone slammed into the outside world would tremble. Boom. Suddenly, there was a terrifying explosion that sounded like a lightning punishment. The entire world shook like it had never been before. After the tremor subsided, Zhuowen, who was in the lake, stared at the edge of the outside world. There was an indestructible space barrier, but at this moment, a crack appeared in the space barrier. The moment the crack appeared, the mysterious stone stopped moving, and it floated under the crack. Zhuowen could clearly see that in the crack, waves of rich green energy emerged and flowed into the mysterious stone. As the green energy flowed in, the patterns on the surface of the mysterious stone became clearer and more complex. "This is the energy of the 36 jade stones in my clone's hands." The original body raised its head to look at this scene, and a strange look appeared in its eyes. After the mysterious stone absorbed the last bit of green energy, it suddenly shot out and slammed into the crack. At this moment, the mysterious stone was clearly much stronger than before. After dozens of bombardments, it actually caused a mysterious stone-shaped crack to appear on the crack. Then, the patterns on the surface of the mysterious stone lit up, and a mysterious energy surged out. It turned into a thin film that filled the crack. What was strange was that the mysterious energy that gushed out of the mysterious stone formed a thin film. It was like a perfect space barrier, completely filling up the crack. In addition, Zhuowen had a feeling that things in the big world could be transported to the outside world through this gap. Whoosh! After doing this, the mysterious stone flew out of the gap and disappeared from the big world. Outside the great world, Zhuowen's avatar and Ghost Girl stared blankly at the shattered jade stone in their hands. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curved into a wry smile. He knew exactly what had happened during this time. Ghost Girl, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. "Zhuowen, you absorbed the energy of the 36 jade stones. You're actually fine?" Ghost Girl looked at Zhuowen as if she was looking at a monster. In the Slaughter Heavenly Domain, the energy of jade stones could not be directly absorbed. If one absorbed it directly, they would undoubtedly die. This was common knowledge that everyone knew. However, the moment Zhuowen received the 36 jade stones, the 36 jade stones turned into fine powder. This was a sign that the jade stone's energy had been exhausted. Ghost Girl could not explain this phenomenon, and naturally subconsciously assumed that Zhuowen had absorbed the energy of the jade stones. Zhuowen coughed dryly and was about to explain when a black shadow rushed out from his body. Immediately after, the black shadow rushed towards the southeast corner of the room like a cat that had stolen a fish. There happened to be a secret door in the southeast corner that led to the basement below. "What's that?" Ghost Girl was startled. Looking at the secret door in the southeast corner, her beautiful eyes filled with panic. "The basement is filled with the jade stones stored by our tribe." Ghost Girl ignored Zhuowen and immediately entered the secret door. She wanted to see what the black shadow that had intruded into the cellar was. "Zhuo, Wen felt around in his sleeve and found that the jade stone he had obtained from Pang Yong had already turned into a pile of powder. This was the masterpiece of the mysterious stone. After absorbing the 36 jade stones given to him by Ghost Girl, this guy did not even let go of the one jade stone he had. Not good. This guy wants to swallow all the jade stones of the Tiani tribe. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly, and he followed Ghost Girl into the secret door. The basement was not deep. Zhuowen only needed to climb 20 or 30 steps to reach the bottom of the basement. Glowing stones hung on the walls of the basement. Zhuowen found Ghost Girl standing in the middle of the basement in a daze, her beautiful eyes staring at the pile of dust in the middle of the basement. Zhuowen could tell at a glance that the dust was the result of the jade stone's energy being absorbed. Above the pile of ashes, a dark and swarthy stone floated quietly. Whoosh! The mysterious stone seemed to have sensed Zhuowen's arrival. It turned into a black shadow and appeared beside Zhuowen. Then, like a house cat, it leaned on Zhuowen's shoulder. Zhuowen could clearly feel that after the mysterious stone absorbed the jade stones, some kind of spirituality seemed to have awakened. Ghost Girl turned around, her beautiful eyes filled with anger and resentment. She looked at Zhuowen and said, "Zhuowen, you should explain to me what is going on, right? The jade stones in the basement are all the reserves of our Tiani tribe. They are also the foundation of our tribe's survival in the slaughter heavenly realm. Now that all the jade stones have been taken away by you, our Tiani tribe will be finished soon. You came here to destroy our Tian-E tribe, didn't you?" Ghost Girl's voice was full of grief and indignation. She stamped her foot, pulled out a small sharp stone dagger from her waist, and stabbed it toward Zhuowen's heart. Zhuowen took a step back. His right hand moved as fast as lightning, grabbing Ghost Girl's hand that was holding the dagger. Then, with a twist, he took the dagger from her hand. At the same time, his left hand reached out and grabbed Ghost Girl's other hand, making it impossible for her to move. "Ghost Girl, I didn't expect this to happen. But don't worry, I will compensate you for the jade stones you lost," Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Ghost Girl was still emotional. She said, "More than 100 jade stones. How are you going to compensate me? You know, in the slaughter heavenly realm, jade stones are the most scarce resource. Since the establishment of our Tiani tribe, we have only accumulated so many jade stones. I said I will compensate you, so I will." Zhuowen turned his right hand, took out a crystal-clear stone, and put it in front of Ghost Girl. Chapter 3118. Crepe Myrtle, is this a supreme grade, heavenly Tao origin crystal? Nether Maiden's eyes widened as she stared intently at the translucent stone in Zhuowen's hand. She had never seen a heavenly Tao origin crystal since entering the Massacre celestial domain. Originally, Dark Maiden had a lot of heavenly Tao origin crystals in her spirit ring, but spatial artifacts like spirit rings couldn't be opened in the Slaughter Heaven domain. But now, a heavenly Tao origin crystal had suddenly appeared in Zhuowen's hand, as if it had appeared out of thin air. Nether Maiden found this to be inconceivable. Zhuowen handed the supreme grade, heavenly Tao origin crystal to Nether Maiden. With a wave of his sleeve, a small mountain of supreme grade, heavenly Tao origin crystals appeared in the open space behind Nether Maiden. There were at least 500 supreme grade, heavenly Tao origin crystals on the open space. They were white and sparkling, and the light they emitted was much brighter than the glowing stones on the walls of the underground cellar. The mysterious stone had opened a large crack in the spatial barrier above the outside world, and a mysterious energy had surged out to fill the crack. Zhuowen discovered that he could actually use items from the outside world. He knew that this was all thanks to the mysterious stone. At the same time, Zhuowen became even more curious about the mysterious stone's origins. The Massacre Celestial Domain was a land abandoned by the heavens. There was no heavenly Tao energy or heavenly Tao laws. Even the consciousness of a cultivator was completely suppressed here. All spatial artifacts lost their effectiveness and were unable to be opened. However, the mysterious energy released by the mysterious stone had broken through the shackles and restrictions of the Massacre Celestial Domain. This made Zhuowen pay more and more attention to the mysterious stone. Zhuowen, why did you give me so many supreme grade, heavenly Tao origin crystals? Nethermaiden's anger had long since dissipated. In its place was a little flattered. Seeing so many supreme grade, heavenly Tao origin crystals on the ground, she felt a little embarrassed. But soon, Nethermaiden discovered that something was wrong. She looked at Zhuowen and asked in surprise, "Zhuowen, you can use spatial artifacts." Zhuowen spread out his hands and said, "I don't know why either. I can suddenly open my spatial divine tool. This is purely an accident." Ghost Girl's beautiful eyes were filled with surprise. She immediately tried to open her spirit ring, but unfortunately, she failed. Ghost Girl glanced at Zhuowen dejectedly, but she didn't pursue the matter. She knew that since he could open a spatial artifact, it had to be his secret. It would be rude of her to continue pursuing the matter. Moreover, Zhuowen had given them 500 supreme-grade heavenly Tao origin crystals, which far exceeded the value of the 100 or so jade stones they had lost. In Nethergirl's eyes, jade stones were far less valuable than heavenly Tao origin crystals. The heavenly energy contained within the emerald stone was highly toxic. Cultivators could not absorb it directly, or else they would die without a doubt. They could only absorb it indirectly through setting up formations. Without the help of a god formation master, the jade stone would become a useless ornament. However, heavenly Tao origin crystals were different. Cultivators could directly absorb the heavenly energy within and use it for cultivation. They could also set up formations with the heavenly Tao origin crystals. As long as one wasn't an idiot, they would know that heavenly Tao origin crystals were much better than emerald stones. However, in Zhuowen's eyes, emerald stones were far more valuable than heavenly Tao origin crystals. Heavenly Tao origin crystals were like currency in the outside world. They were too rare and common. They were relatively rare and precious only in the Massacre heavenly realm. However, emerald stones were different. They were unique to the Massacre heavenly realm and were almost non-existent in the outside world. Most importantly, emerald stones had miraculous effects on the mysterious stone's recovery. This was the main reason why Zhuowen valued emerald stones. How about this? Let's go up first. I plan to set up a heavenly Tao recovery formation for your tribe. This formation can produce large amounts of heavenly Tao energy. Cultivators can enter it and not only recover, but also cultivate. Zhuowen said. Ghost Girl was a little embarrassed and wanted to refuse. However, under Zhuowen's insistence, she could only agree to Zhuowen's request. After leaving the cellar, Zhuowen put the mysterious stone back into his macro world. Then he took out the beast bone formation plate and used the heavenly Tao origin crystal as the formation base. He set up the heavenly Tao recovery formation at the original location of the heavenly Tao formation. Zhuowen, are you willing to become a god formation master of our Tiani tribe? If you agree, you will be on an equal footing with the minister. After Zhuowen finished setting up the formation, Nethermaiden looked at Zhuowen with a burning gaze, her beautiful eyes filled with eagerness. Zhuowen shook his head and said, Ghost Girl, I don't plan to stay in the Massacre heavenly realm forever. I accidentally entered the Massacre heavenly realm. Now, I just want to leave the Massacre heavenly realm as soon as possible. Therefore, I can't stay in the Tiani tribe. Ghost Girl's beautiful eyes dimmed. Then she looked at Juon in surprise and said, "You want to leave the massacre heavenly realm? I think it's best if you don't have such thoughts, because everyone who wants to leave the slaughter heaven domain is dead." Pang Yong told me that the exit of the massacre heavenly realm is in the Forbidden Zone. Only by breaking through the Forbidden Zone can one leave the massacre heavenly realm for good. However, the Forbidden Zone is full of dangers. It is said that countless people who tried to break through the Forbidden Zone have all died. However, there are also people who succeeded. Zhuowen said in a deep voice, "There was indeed someone who succeeded, and it was only one person. That person was the city lord of the fourth divine city, Ziwei. Crepe Myrtle is a real genius. He has only been in Slaughter Sky region for a few hundred years. He went from a nobody to a city leader. Plus, city leader Crepe Myrtle suppressed the other 3 city leaders. They were so suppressed that they couldn't breathe. When City Lord Ziwei was in power, none of the foreign races dared to offend the human race. Many of the foreign races even tried to build a good relationship with the human race. Unfortunately, the good times did not last long. City Lord Ziwei chose to leave. Speaking up to here, Yu was a little depressed. At the same time, she wanted to persuade Zhuowen. In Yunu's opinion, Zhuowen's strength was far inferior to that of City Lord Ziwei. Even if he found the Forbidden Zone of the Massacre Heavenly Realm, he would not be able to break through. Ziwei is the city lord of the fourth divine city, called Ziwei Star Monarch. Hearing the name Ziwei, Zhuowen thought of his good friend, Ziwei Star Monarch. When he was still in the 8 heavenly realms, Ziwei Star Monarch left without saying goodbye and went to the Xianmi heavenly realm first, leaving only a message for him. After Zhuowen entered the Xianmi heavenly realm, he went to find Ziwei Star Monarch, but he did not get any news. Ziwei Star Monarch seemed to have disappeared from the world. Now that he heard the name Ziwei in the Massacre Heavenly Realm, he could not help but think of his good friend, Ziwei Star Monarch. Yu shook her head blankly and said, "I'm not too sure. That city lord called himself Ziwei, but he did not say that he was Ziwei Star Monarch." Chapter 3119. Invasion. Zhuowen, let me give you a piece of advice. It's best if you don't think about leaving the Slaughter Heavenly Domain. The Slaughter Heavenly Domain has existed for such a long time. There have been many cultivators who have entered the Forbidden Area, but the only one who has truly left the Slaughter Heavenly Domain is City Lord Ziwei. From this, it can be seen how dangerous the Forbidden Area is. Yu spoke again, intending to persuade Zhuowen to give up on the idea of entering the Forbidden Area. Zhuowen did not want to continue on this topic. He had to leave the Slaughter Heavenly Domain, but he did not want to continue talking to Yu. Just as Zhuowen was about to change the topic, the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside the door. And then Pang Yong barged into the house, panting. Yu frowned and said with some displeasure, "Pang Yong, why didn't you say hello when you came in?" Pang Yong had not calmed down yet, and anxiously said, "Master Yu, Master Zhua, something bad has happened. The army of the Flowing Cloud tribe is rushing towards our tribe. Quickly come out and take a look." Hearing this, Yu's expression changed drastically. She immediately left Zhuowen and left the house. Zhuowen also left the house. Immediately after, he discovered that everyone in the tribe had expressions of fear on their faces. Many of them were even at a loss for what to do. Zhuowen's gaze fell outside the tribe. A few thousand meters in front of the tribe, an army was rushing towards them. The general in the lead of this army was riding a strange beast that looked like a horse, but its skin was covered in cold scales. This strange beast's eyes were scarlet red, and its entire body was filled with a tyrannical aura. However, the general riding on the strange beast was extremely skilled. This strange beast looked arrogant and unruly, but under the general's taming, it had no choice but to listen to the general's orders and run forward with all its might. That's a dragon horse. It looks like a horse, but it has dragon-like scales. It's a type of killing beast. Only a large tribe has the ability to capture such a powerful killing beast and use force to tame it. Pang Yong stood beside Zhuo Wen and explained when he saw the surprised expression on Zhuo Wen's face. Is this army of the Flowing Cloud tribe coming with ill intentions? Zhuo Wen said with a frown as he looked at the aggressive army. Pang Yong sighed and said, "The Flowing Cloud tribe is a big tribe of the non-human race. Our Tiani tribe is the only small tribe of the human race within the territory of the Flowing Cloud tribe. In normal times, the Flowing Cloud tribe has always made things difficult for our Tiani tribe. If it weren't for our minister, our Tiani tribe would have long ceased to exist." Speaking up to this point, Pang Yong's eyes were filled with worry as he continued. This time, the minister brought a few elites of the tribe to the great tribe of Flowing Cloud. Now that the army from the great tribe of Flowing Cloud has arrived, I wonder how the minister and the others are doing. Suddenly, the general riding on the dragon horse untied the cloth bag hanging on his waist. He took out the head that had been wrapped in the cloth bag and threw it into the air. The general pulled out a long spear from his back. With a twist of his right hand, the long spear shot out like a dragon and pierced through the head. Then he raised the long spear up high. Zhuo Wen's eyes fell on the head and found that it was the face of an old man in his 50s. His long white hair fluttered in the wind. What caught Zhuo Wen's attention the most was that the old man's eyes were wide open. His eyes were filled with anger. Before he died, he must have been treated very unfairly. When the people of the Tiani tribe saw the head that was raised up high, they were in an uproar. Everyone let out a cry of sorrow. Yu Nu, who was standing at the front, knelt on the ground in disappointment. Her beautiful eyes stared at the head on the long spear. A line of clear tears flowed down her face. It's the minister. The great tribe of Flowing Cloud tribe summoned the minister for a meeting. Who would have thought that the minister would be killed? The great tribe of Flowing Cloud tribe is too shameless. Pang Yong stood beside Zhuo Wen. His voice was low as he suppressed the anger in his heart. Zhuo Wen looked at the army that was getting closer and closer. He could see that the army of Flowing Cloud tribe had no intention of stopping. They planned to completely crush the Tiani tribe. Zhuo Wen stepped beside Yu Nu and said in a deep voice, "Yu Nu, do you want to avenge your minister?" Yu Nu raised her head. Her beautiful eyes were filled with confusion. However, the confusion was quickly replaced by hatred. She said resolutely, "I want to. As long as I can avenge the minister, I will do anything. What I want you to do now is very simple. That is, use your prestige to gather everyone in the tribe. Then, enter the minister's residence." Zhuo Wen said in a deep voice. Yu Nu was stunned. She did not expect that Zhuo Wen would ask her to do such a simple thing. She could not figure out why he wanted to gather everyone in the tribe at the minister's residence. Was it to let the great army of Flowing Cloud tribe kill them all? Trust me, you will soon know why I want you to do this. Even if you take everyone in the tribe with you now, it is too late. The Flowing Cloud tribe's army has already surrounded your tribe. You cannot escape, Zhuo Wen said with a serious look in his eyes. Yu Nu sighed. She could also see the intentions of the great army of Flowing Cloud tribe. It was too late to escape now. "I trust you." Yu Nu bit her lip and began to gather everyone in the tribe to the minister's residence. Yu Nu's prestige in the Tiani tribe was very high. Her summons was quickly answered by everyone. Watching the people of the tribe enter the huge, thatched hut in the center of the tribe in an orderly manner, Yu Nu felt relieved. She looked at Zhuowen and was surprised to see Zhuowen walking around the tribe. Just as she was about to ask Zhuowen to enter the thatched hut, she saw Zhuowen take out 81 beast bone array discs and pinch them with both hands. She understood why Zhuowen wanted her to gather everyone in the tribe and enter the thatched hut. I hope Zhuowen's array can really stop the great army of Flowing Cloud tribe. A glimmer of hope rose in Yu Nu's heart, but she quickly shook her head. Zhuowen had said himself that his array skills were only at the Daoyuan master level. In other words, the defensive array Zhuowen could set up was at the Daoyuan master level at best. Yu Nu happened to know the general sent by the great army of Flowing Cloud tribe. He was the bravest warrior in the Flowing Cloud tribe, the man known as the Flowing Cloud war god, Zhu Barbarian. Zhu Barbarian's cultivation was at the peak of the Eternal Overlord level, although he was suppressed in the Massacre Heavenly Domain, and his strength was greatly reduced. He was still at the peak of the Eternal Overlord level. However, it was impossible for a mere Daoyuan master level defensive array to stop an expert like Zhu Barbarian. Sigh, it seems that the Tiani tribe cannot escape the fate of destruction. But before the tribe is destroyed, I must avenge the minister, even if I have to sacrifice my life. Chapter 31:20. The ancestral barbarian tribesman's forehead was beaded with sweat after he finished laying down the last formation base. He took out a top-grade Heavenly Law origin crystal and held it in his palm, rapidly absorbing the surging Heavenly Law energy within. This time, Zhuowen had set up a killing formation called the Shadowless Thousand Armies Formation, an eternal-grade killing formation. Before this formation was activated, there was no trace of it, but once it was activated, a dense army of soldiers would appear. The army souls that appeared in the Shadowless Thousand Armies Formation were the souls of brave and skilled generals, and all of them had the strength of Lord Profound Secrets. There were over 1,000 of them. Once the ancestral barbarian army rushed into the Shadowless Thousand Armies Formation, it would be the start of their nightmare. This massacre horizon is really annoying. I'm just setting up an eternal grade formation, but I'm almost exhausted. Zhuowen muttered to himself as he wiped the sweat from his forehead. In order to save time, he had naturally set up a low-grade formation. In the outside world, with his formation Dao skills, setting up an eternal grade formation would be a piece of cake. But here, he was exhausted and had to use Heavenly Law origin crystals to replenish his energy. Zhuowen, thank you. If our Heavenly Reliance tribe can't withstand the attack of the Drifting Cloud army, I will help you break out. At some point, Ghost Girl had come to Zhuowen's side. She didn't look at Zhuowen, but at the Drifting Cloud army that was rapidly approaching as she spoke softly to Zhuowen. Pang Yong followed behind Ghost Girl, his eyes filled with the will to die. Zhuowen glanced at Ghost Girl beside him and discovered that the latter's eyes were glowing with an extremely demonic blue light. For some reason, Zhuowen felt an unprecedented threat from this blue light. Recalling Ghost Girl's words, Zhuowen's eyes flashed. It seemed that Ghost Girl was not simple. She had a special power that even he couldn't see, although Zhuowen really wanted to say that the array formation that he had laid down could help the Tiani tribe resist this disaster. However, when he recalled the look of disbelief on Yu Nu's face when he said that he was a creation-grade god array master, he knew that even if he said that now, Yu Nu would not believe him. Once the 1,000 Armies shadowless array showed its true power, Netherwoman would probably believe that his attainment in the Tao of formations was indeed at the level of creation. I feel that the formation I've set up should be able to stop the Drifting Cloud army. Perhaps if we're lucky, the Drifting Cloud army will be directly destroyed by my formation. Zhuowen said with a smile. Ghost Girl shook her head and didn't answer. She didn't take Zhuowen's words to heart and only treated them as a joke. In Netherwoman's eyes, Zhuowen was only a primordial Tao formation divine master, and the formations he set up were only primordial Tao formation divine masters. It would be strange if he could stop the flowing cloud army. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the entire Tian-E tribe shook violently. The drifting cloud army stopped 50 meters away from the tribe. Netherwoman didn't speak anymore. Instead, she looked at the drifting cloud army solemnly. Just as Netherwoman said, the drifting cloud army wasn't a human tribe. Most of the soldiers in the army were from the alien races. The leader of the army was Zhu Man, who was wearing heavy armor. He was 3 meters tall and was from the Beastman race. 2 huge fangs protruded from his mouth, making him look extremely domineering. Zhu Man jumped down from the draconic horse. The draconic horse neighed and stomped its hind legs, wanting to charge towards Zhu Man. "You're courting death." Zhu Man snorted coldly and punched the draconic horse's neck. The powerful force directly knocked the draconic horse to the ground. The draconic horse let out a sorrowful cry and lay on the ground, struggling constantly. Zhu Man didn't give the draconic horse a chance to escape. He stomped his foot heavily on the draconic horse. The draconic horse's sorrowful cry became even louder. Its bloodthirsty eyes were filled with a pleading look. Zhu Man kicked the draconic horse away, and a soldier from the alien race took the draconic horse away. Zhu Man stuck his spear on the ground. The head of the Tian-E tribe's chief was stuck on the tip of the spear. His eyes were filled with anger, and he died with remaining grievances. "Zhu Man, why did your drifting cloud tribe betray us and kill our chief? Why did you humiliate our Tian-E tribe today?" Netherwoman clenched her fists. She suppressed her anger and asked Zhu Man. Zhu Man grinned and said, "Humiliate your Tian-E tribe? You think too highly of your Tian-E tribe. You're just a small tribe. You don't need me to humiliate you personally. I came here today to destroy your tribe. We, the Drifting Cloud tribe, kindly invited this old bastard to discuss the future development plans of all the tribes. This old bastard actually went crazy during the meeting and tried to kill the head of the Drifting Cloud tribe. How dare he? Today, Zhu Man, brought this old bastard's head here. I want to ask your Tian-E tribe what you mean by this. If you have any opinions about our Drifting Cloud tribe, you can say it gently. We will accept it with an open mind. But this old bastard tried to assassinate our chief with extreme means. Our Drifting Cloud tribe will not tolerate it. In order to set an example for other tribes, your Tian-E tribe must be destroyed today as a warning to others." Netherwoman was so angry that she laughed and said, "Does your Drifting Cloud tribe have any shame? You killed our minister and brought the head of our minister to our Tian-E tribe to denounce us. It seems that your Tian-E tribe wants to put up a resistance. In that case, there's nothing to say. Then I can only use force." Before Zhu Man finished his words, he was interrupted by a voice. "I say, Zhu Man, if you don't want to die now, you'd better take your army and go as far as possible. If you step into the Tian-E tribe now, you won't even know how you died. This is my last advice to you." Zhu Man narrowed his eyes and looked at the young man beside Netherwoman. At first, he thought that the young man was just a small follower of Netherwoman, but now he found that he was standing side by side with Netherwoman. It seemed that he had some status in the Tian-E tribe. What made Zhu Man especially unhappy was that the young man looked at him with pity, which made Zhu Man very unhappy. Right now, it's your Tian-E tribe that's being surrounded by the army. He should be the one with such an expression. You're a guy who's about to die. Who gave you the courage to show such a pitiful expression and even shamelessly issue a warning? Little bastard, say it again, if you have the guts. Zhu Man was obviously bad-tempered. He was very unhappy with Zhuowen and said coldly, "Who do you think you are? You want me to say it again, and I'll say it again? Of course, if you call me father, I might be merciful and say it again, so that you will remember it." Zhuowen sneered. Netherwoman and Pang Yong looked at Zhuowen in surprise. They did not know why Zhuowen deliberately angered Zhu Man. From their point of view, angering Zhu Man was not a good thing. "Little bastard, I will kill you with my own hands." Zhu Man roared in anger. He stomped his right foot and rushed into the Tian-E tribe. Chapter 31:21. Army Spirit, the Ancestral Barbarians. Aura was like a rainbow, and his roar shook the sky with killing intent. Ghost Girl and Pang Yong's faces were pale. Although they were prepared to sacrifice themselves, they couldn't help but feel a strong sense of fear in the face of such a powerful army. In the thatched hut in the center of the tribe, the people of the tribe also heard the Ancestral Barbarians' army charging. Most of them held their heads and sobbed. Some curious people looked out through the gaps in the thatched huts and saw the Ancestral Barbarian leading hundreds of cavalry. They were so scared that they fell to the ground. "It's over. The Flowing Cloud Army has rushed in. We can't escape. We're all going to die under the Flowing Cloud Army's iron hooves. Let's surrender. Maybe the Flowing Cloud Army will let us go. Don't be delusional. When a big tribe attacks a small tribe, it exterminates the whole tribe. Since the Flowing Cloud tribe sent an army, they won't let us go. We're all going to die." An atmosphere of despair pervaded the crowd. The thatched hut was silent. Everyone was trembling in fear and didn't dare to make a sound. "Pang Yong, follow me. Capture the leader first to capture the bandits. Capture the Ancestral Barbarian first." Ghost Girl's beautiful eyes burst with a blazing blue light. Her aura was constantly rising, and her body was tense. She was like a cheetah hiding in the dark, ready to pounce at any time. Zhuowen took a step forward, grabbed Ghost Girl and Pang Yong's hands, and then quickly retreated. Ghost Girl and Pang Yong were prepared to fight to the death. Now that Zhuowen pulled them back, they were caught off guard. "Zhuowen, what are you doing?" Ghost Girl tried to break free from Zhuowen's grip, but to her surprise, Zhuowen's wrist was extraordinarily strong. She struggled several times, but couldn't break free. Pang Yong's situation was similar to Ghost Girl's. Zhuowen pulled them to the side of the thatched hut, one in each hand, and then let go. "Zhuowen, what are you doing? Why are you pulling us away?" Ghost Girl's beautiful eyes stared coldly at Zhuowen, and her tone was a little embarrassed. "Do you know what the great formation that I set up earlier is?" Zhuowen asked indifferently. "How should I know? It's just a primordial Tao defensive formation. How long can it stop the Ancestral Barbarian? If Pang Yong and I go all-out attack, we have a good chance of taking his head. As long as the Barbarian Ancestor dies, our Tiani tribe will have a chance to fight against the Drifting Cloud Army," Yunu said. "Brother Zhuo, if Lady Ghost Girl and I had joined forces just now, we would have had a very high chance of exterminating the barbarian race. But now, we don't have that chance anymore." Pang Yong's tone was filled with dissatisfaction. Zhuowen's gaze was calm as he said indifferently, "The array I set up is called the 1,000 Army Shadowless Array. It's an eternal great array. The Ancestral Barbarian Army is the same as death. 2 of the barbarian, 2 blood, a barbarian of S. Ghost Girl and Pang Yong shook their heads secretly. They didn't believe Zhuowen at all. Not to mention Zhuowen's array Tao level. This guy had set up the formation in such a short time. So how could he have set up an eternal level array? Boom, boom, boom. Like a mad beast, the Ancestral Barbarian rushed into the tribe. The army behind him was like a long dragon, invincible and unstoppable. "Ha ha ha, The Tiani tribe will cease to exist after today. I, the ancestral barbarian, have been ordered by Lu Yun to completely destroy your stupid Tiani tribe. The ancestral barbarian laughed arrogantly. The moment he entered the tribe, he rushed directly to the huge thatched hut in the center. He looked at the three figures in front of the thatched hut. He wanted to tear these three people into pieces, crush the entire thatched hut, and kill everyone in the hut. However, he soon found that something was wrong. This was because strange black shadows had suddenly appeared around him. These black shadows were clad in ferocious armor, as if they were soldiers who had experienced hundreds of battles. Their faces were pitch black, and he couldn't see their faces clearly. Pucci! Pucci! At this moment, the ancestral barbarian heard blood splattering behind him and shrill screams. He suddenly turned his head to look and realized that the hundreds of soldiers he was leading were surrounded by the densely packed army spirits. These army souls were armed with all kinds of weapons, and they surrounded his subordinates without fear of death. There were too many of these army souls, and they were too powerful. The ancestral barbarian's subordinates were like children in front of these army souls. Many of the soldiers of the Drifting Cloud tribe were killed by these army souls before they could react. The ancestral barbarian wanted to turn back and help, but he found that dozens of army souls had appeared in front of him and were surrounding him in a fan shape. Bang! The ancestral barbarian roared and swung the long spear in his hand. The piercing cold spear light flew like stars and shot into the dozens of army souls. The army souls trembled. They ignored the spear light and instantly surrounded the ancestral barbarian. The ancestral barbarian's long spear shot out like lightning. His body stepped out like an angry dragon, and his speed was very fast. But the more ancestral barbarian fought, the more his heart sank. This was because the army souls that surrounded him all had the battle strength of Lord Xuanji. Although the ancestral barbarian's cultivation was at the eternal overlord realm, he couldn't replenish his energy in the outside world. The more he fought, the more he couldn't continue. The ancestral barbarian roared. He realized that he had fallen into a trap. He didn't expect such a powerful formation to be hidden in the Tiani tribe. With his knowledge, he could tell at a glance that this formation should be an eternal level killing formation. This killing formation was enough to wipe out all of them. The ancestral barbarian began to retreat from the Tiani tribe, and he didn't even care about his subordinates. He couldn't even protect himself now, so how could he spare the energy to care about his subordinates? Pucci! The closer the ancestral barbarian got to the entrance of the Tiani tribe, the more army souls surrounded him. The large number of army souls suppressed the ancestral barbarian, and he almost couldn't breathe. He roared to the sky, and a violent aura surged out of his body. His muscles swelled, and dense lines of blood appeared on the surface of his muscles and spread out. It was a strange and enchanting sight. The ancestral barbarian swung the long spear in his hand, and a terrifying blood-red energy spread out like a wave. In an instant, the army souls around him were swept away. The ancestral barbarian took a step forward and stepped into the entrance of the Tiani tribe. He only needed to take one more step to completely escape this damned formation. It was at this moment that he saw a slender palm land on his chest. The palm carried an extremely powerful energy. He felt a sharp pain in his chest, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body flew backward involuntarily, like a withered leaf. The moment he flew backward, ancestral barbarian finally saw the face of the person who had landed the palm. It was a slender young man, and his eyes were cold and calm. Didn't I tell you to get lost, ancestral barbarian? It's too late for you to get lost now. Stay. Chapter 3122. Hong Xian Divine. city, the ancestral barbarian tribes, cries of agony rang out endlessly, but they soon stopped abruptly. As the spirits of the army dispersed, the Tian-E tribe fell silent. Ghost Girl and Pang Yong stared at the corpses in front of the straw hut with their mouths agape. The flowing cloud army was annihilated. Pang Yong asked hoarsely. Ghost Girl looked at the young man standing at the entrance of the tribe with a complicated expression. She thought back to the young man's words and realized that she had misunderstood him all this time. Is he really a creation-grade divine array master? Ghost Girl muttered to herself. Her voice was filled with complicated emotions and shame. At this moment, the tribesmen in the straw hut also noticed that the commotion outside had stopped abruptly. They couldn't help but come out of their straw huts. When they saw the corpses in the tribe, all of them covered their mouths in shock. Most of them were confused. Who was the one who killed the invincible flowing cloud army? Could it be Ghost Girl and Pang Yong? Zhuowen, you are the savior of our Tian-E tribe. Please forgive my rudeness to you and accept my sincere apology. Ghost Girl suddenly knelt on one knee in front of Zhuowen. Her beautiful eyes were filled with sincerity. Pang Yong also knelt beside Ghost Girl. His eyes were filled with gratitude. When the tribesmen saw Ghost Girl and Pang Yong's actions, they immediately knew that the young man in front of them was the one who had resolved the crisis. Whoosh! The tribesmen also knelt in front of Zhuowen. They sincerely thanked Zhuowen. They knew very well that if the flowing cloud army was allowed to charge into the tribe, they would all die. However, Zhuowen had helped them to annihilate the flowing cloud army. He could be said to be their savior. Zhuowen looked at the tribesmen kneeling in front of him and felt a headache coming on. He hurriedly said, "Get up. Speaking of which, I was just trying to protect myself." The tribesmen didn't hesitate. Under Zhuowen's command, they all stood up. However, they looked at Zhuowen with a burning gaze that Zhuowen couldn't stand. Next, Ghost Girl arranged for some people to deal with the corpses of the flowing cloud army in the tribe, and some people to repair the damaged areas around the tribe. Zhuowen, on the other hand, walked straight out of the tribe towards the dragon horse that was tied to a wooden stake outside the tribe by the ancestral man's trusted messenger. The dragon horse's eyes were scarlet red, and it looked at Zhuowen with hostility. It was breathing heavily, and its forehooves stomped on the ground, looking very manic. Zhuowen! The dragon horse was a type of beast that was very difficult to tame. The barbarian ancestor didn't completely tame it. He only used violence to make it submit temporarily. Ghost Girl was extremely intelligent. She immediately saw through Zhuowen's intention to tame the slaughter beast. If I want to leave this place, I have to find the forbidden zone of the slaughter heavenly realm. The location of the forbidden zone is in the hands of the God City's city lord. I have to head to the God City. Naturally, I will need a mount for such a long journey, Zhuowen said. Hearing this, Ghost Girl fell silent. She had always wanted Zhuowen to stay and become the divine array master of the Tian-E tribe. However, Ghost Girl also knew that it was unrealistic. Zhuowen's array Dao was too high. Even if Zhuowen didn't want to leave the slaughter heavenly realm, he wouldn't stay in a small tribe like the Tian-E tribe. Our Tian-E tribe and Flowing Cloud tribe are both under the jurisdiction of the Hongxian Divine City. However, I don't recommend you to go to the Hongxian Divine City. Ghost Girl said. Why? Zhuowen asked curiously. I told you before. There are 3 god cities in the slaughter heavenly realm. 2 of them are ruled by the experts of the foreign races, and the last one belongs to the human race. Unfortunately, the city lord of the Hongxian Divine City is not a human expert. If you go there, you will be kicked out immediately. Ghost Girl said. Zhuowen snickered in his heart. If Ghost Girl knew that his clone had the bloodline of the Devourer King, she wouldn't have said that. of course. Zhuowen had always walked in the slaughter, heavenly realm with the appearance of a human. Moreover, he rarely took action. Therefore, everyone in the Tian-Yi tribe thought that Zhuowen was a human. With Zhuowen's Devourer King bloodline, it wasn't difficult for him to enter the Hongxian Divine City. The difficult part was finding out the exact location of the slaughter heavenly realm's forbidden zone from the city lord of the Hongxian Divine City. Is the city ruled by the human race far away? Zhuowen asked. Very far. Even if you ride the dragon horse, it will take you about a year, Ghost Girl said. Zhuowen frowned slightly and immediately gave up on the idea of going to the human race's divine city. He had already asked Ghost Girl about the exact location of the Hongxian Divine City. According to Ghost Girl, if he rode the dragon horse, it would only take him 3 days to reach the outskirts of the Hongxian Divine City. However, it was said that if he wanted to enter the Divine City, he had to meet the corresponding conditions. And this condition was that he had to be recommended by the head of a large tribe. In other words, even if Zhuowen rushed to the Hongxian Divine City without stopping, he would still be refused entry. Ghost Girl, I still plan to go to the Hongxian Divine City. However, before I go to the Hongxian Divine City, I have to go to the Flowing Cloud tribe to see the head of the tribe. Also, don't worry. Your Tian-Yi tribe has the 1,000-army shadowless array that I set up. If the Flowing Cloud tribe invades your Tian-Yi tribe, it will only be worse. Zhuowen said solemnly. Ghost Girl shook her head and said, this time, the Flowing Cloud tribe sent their most elite troops. Now that they have lost all of them in our Tian-Yi tribe, I'm afraid the Flowing Cloud tribe won't dare to send any more troops. As she spoke, Ghost Girl took out a sheepskin scroll from her sleeve and handed it to Zhuowen. She said, Zhuowen, this sheepskin scroll records the route to the Flowing Cloud tribe. The Flowing Cloud tribe isn't far from the Hongxian Divine City. After you arrive at the Flowing Cloud tribe, you can easily buy a map of the Hongxian Divine City. Zhuowen took the sheepskin scroll and cupped his hands towards Ghost Girl to express his gratitude. Zhuowen, are you sure you want to go to the Hongxian Divine City? Although you have very high attainments in the Tao of Arrays, the foreign races have always been hostile to the human race. You might be able to rely on your attainments in the Tao of Arrays to gain the favor of the foreign races, but you might also be targeted. Ghost Girl was still somewhat worried. Zhuowen smiled faintly and said, don't worry, I know. If the Hongxian Divine City really doesn't work, I will go to the human race's divine city. In any case, I will have to pass through the Hongxian Divine City on the way to the human race's divine city. Since Zhuowen had already said so, Ghost Girl didn't say anything more. Zhuowen took out a dark green pill from the outside world and forced it into the dragon horse's mouth. After swallowing the pill, the scarlet eyes of the dragon horse were replaced by a dark green color. The ferocious aura on its body was completely withdrawn. Shortly after, it bent down and gently pressed its forehead against Zhuowen's right hand in a very docile manner. Chapter 31:23. Xiong Fei Zhuowen smashed the wooden stake and grabbed the reins of the draconic horse with his right hand. With a kick of his right foot, he leaped onto the horse. The draconic horse stood there meekly, not daring to move. Zhuowen, take these 3 bags of jade water. In the massacre heavenly domain, jade water is very important to cultivators. It's the source of life for cultivators. Yu took out 3 bags of water and handed them to Zhuowen. Zhuowen didn't refuse. Although he could freely take things from the mysterious stone field in his great world, he didn't have any jade water. However, there was no jade water in his great world, and the harsh environment of the massacre celestial realm all depended on jade water. Even heavenly law origin crystals were useless. I'm leaving first. We'll meet again someday. Also, send my regards to Pang Yong. Zhuowen waved to Yu Nu and slapped the draconic horse's belly. The draconic horse neighed and rushed forward like a gust of wind. The Flowing Cloud tribe was 10 times larger than the Tiani tribe and had a population in the thousands. Around the tribe, there were even high walls that were more than 10 feet high. This kind of high wall was basically useless to cultivators, but it was very useful in the Slaughter Heaven domain. The Massacre Heavenly domain was a land abandoned by the heavens and had a natural air restriction. Any cultivator in the Massacre Heavenly domain couldn't fly at all. This wall, which was about 10 feet high, could withstand the impact of many tribes' armies. The Flowing Cloud tribe's minister's mansion was much better than the Tiani tribe's. It was a tower-shaped building that covered a large area. Unlike the Tiani tribe's thatched huts, it was a tower made of stone. Inside the mansion, the Flowing Cloud tribe's minister, Xiong Fei, looked gravely at his subordinate kneeling in front of him. You said the ancestral barbarians failed to attack the Tiani tribe, and they were completely wiped out. How could a trifling Tiani tribe wipe out the elite troops of our Drifting Cloud tribe? Are you sure you're not seeing things? Xiong Fei was so angry that his body trembled. He was also from the Beastman clan, and his body was about 3 meters tall. However, he had a big belly, and as his body trembled, his majestic belly shook out a series of spectacular ripples. The subordinate was so scared that he didn't dare to look up at Xiong Fei. He said in a trembling voice, "Minister, when I went to investigate, I happened to see the people of the Tiani tribe dealing with the corpses of General Zhu Man. I definitely didn't see wrong. Also, this subordinate discovered that the Tiani tribe is surrounded by an extremely powerful array. I'm guessing that General Zhu Man and the others might have suffered a loss under the formation." Xiong Fei frowned slightly and said with a cold look in his eyes, "To trap and kill the elites led by Zhu Barbarian, it would require at least an eternal great array. This kind of array formation can only be found in large tribes. The Tiani tribe is just an insignificant small tribe. How could they have such a level of array formation?" "I don't know either," the subordinate said with some fear. Xiong Fei no longer spoke. The room was terrifyingly quiet. The subordinate raised his head, glanced at Xiong Fei, and said cautiously, "Minister, are we still going to send troops to the Tiani tribe?" Xiong Fei stepped forward, kicked the subordinate to the ground, and roared, "Send your sister. Have all the elites of the Drifting Cloud tribe been wiped out? Why are you still sending troops over? Are you sending cannon fodder?" This subordinate doesn't dare. The subordinate rolled over and quickly knelt on the ground, trembling. "Don't touch the Tiani tribe for the time being. Let's check it out first." Xiong Fei's eyes were dignified. He stepped forward again, kicked the subordinate to the ground, and said, "It's all right now. Why don't you get out of here? I'm upset when I see you." The subordinate bowed, submissively, and quietly retreated. Deng, deng, deng. After a while, footsteps sounded outside the door again. Xiong Fei glared and roared, "Didn't I tell you to get out? What are you doing here?" "Minister Xiong Fei is really impressive." A strange and sarcastic voice came. Xiong Fei frowned slightly and couldn't help but look over. He saw a young man slowly walking in. A human? Xiong Fei's eyes narrowed, and then he was furious. A mere human dared to barge into his mansion. Was he looking for death? But soon, Xiong Fei calmed down. The defense of the Drifting Cloud tribe was extremely tight. If they found a human, they would have alerted them. But to think that this human would be able to barge into his residence without any alarm going off, that was something that was a little strange. The young man slowly walked to a seat in the room, sat down lazily, and looked at Xiong Fei calmly. This young man was naturally Zhuowen. After he entered the Drifting Cloud tribe, He used the beast bone array disc to set up a concealment array around himself. He quietly approached Xiong Fei's mansion and smoothly sneaked in. Of course, before entering the mansion, Zhuowen set up a terrifying killing array around the mansion. And it wasn't a low-level one. It was a Genesis level 1. Even if there was a Genesis level expert in the mansion, Zhuowen was confident that he could seriously injure or even kill him. Xiong Fei's cultivation wasn't low. He was a peak eternal overlord of a foreign race. But after being secretly trapped in the killing array, Zhuowen knew that Xiong Fei's life was completely in his hands. Ever since the Great World had been opened, Zhuowen didn't need to conserve his heavenly Tao energy in the massacre celestial domain. The Great World had a terrifying reserve of heavenly Tao origin crystals. It was enough for Zhuowen to cultivate for 1,000 years without a problem. As long as he consumed a significant amount of heavenly Tao energy, he would immediately take out a heavenly Tao origin crystal to recover. Therefore, he had a huge advantage over all the other cultivators in the massacre celestial domain. In the massacre sky domain, Zhuowen, who was not afraid of exhausting himself, probably did not even care about the city lord. Minister Xiong Fei, your eyesight isn't very good. Do you still think I'm a human? Zhuowen leaned back in his chair. Suddenly, a terrifying aura erupted from his body. This aura carried with it a destructive force that could swallow the heavens and devour the earth. Above Zhuowen's head, a huge black hole vortex appeared. An extremely terrifying devouring force emerged from it. Under the influence of this devouring force, everything in the room seemed to want to leave and enter the black hole. Xiong Fei looked at the black hole vortex above Zhuowen's head, and his pupils shrank. He said in a deep voice, "Devourer King." But soon, Xiong Fei regained his calm. The Devourer King in front of him was weaker than him. He was only a late-stage eternal overlord. If they really fought, Xiong Fei was confident that he would have the upper hand. However, Xiong Fei naturally wouldn't casually start a meaningless fight. Which tribe are you from? Why have you come to my flowing cloud great tribe? Xiong Fei said coldly. Zhuowen put away the devouring vortex and smiled. Minister Xiong Fei, I'm here to cooperate with you. Cooperation? What cooperation? Xiong Fei asked in surprise. Chapter 3124. Demand Xiong Fei's face darkened as he stared coldly at Zhuowen, the veins on his forehead bulging. The guy in front of him was too arrogant. The moment he opened his mouth, he said that he could control his life and death. Wasn't he looking down on him? A recommendation from the Divine City comes at a huge price. Our drifting cloud tribe has only been recommended 3 times since it was founded. Who do you think you are to ask for a recommendation from the Divine City? Xiong Fei sneered. Xiong Fei, I've said it before. I'm doing this for your own good. As long as you recommend me, I can save your life. Otherwise, I can only take your life. Zhuowen was still sitting in his seat. His right index finger tapped lightly on the coffee table to his right, making a dong 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 sound. You're courting death. Xiong Fei was enraged. This guy really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. He actually dared to mention death again and again in front of him. This made Xiong Fei want to kill Zhuo when immediately, boom, Xiong Fei stomped his right foot and disappeared on the spot like an illusory green smoke. The moment Xiong Fei appeared in front of Zhuowen, the aura on his body rose to a terrifying level. It was as if the heavens and earth had changed color. Xiong Fei's right hand formed a fist and smashed towards Zhuowen's face. Zhuowen was still sitting in his original position, motionless. It was as if he didn't feel the impending danger. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Just as Xiong Fei's attack was about to hit Zhuowen's face, dense, purple tentacles suddenly appeared under Zhuowen's feet. These purple tentacles shot out like lightning and entangled Xiong Fei. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break free. At the same time, more and more purple tentacles appeared and shot towards Xiong Fei. Xiong Fei's face was ugly. Under the pincer attack of so many purple tentacles, he could only retreat. Is this a formation? You set up a formation? Xiong Fei destroyed a few of the purple tentacles with a punch. He looked towards Zhuowen and asked with an ugly expression, "You're not stupid. Before I entered your residence, I did accidentally set up a God of Creation stage killing formation. What you see now is merely the appetizer of this killing formation. The real main course has yet to be served." Zhuowen leaned back in his chair and said lazily. Xiong Fei's eyes narrowed as he stared at Zhuowen in disbelief. This guy was able to set up a God of Creation stage killing formation so easily. Didn't that mean that he was at least a God of Creation stage formation master? Only the Divine City would have such a divine array master. Now, one of them had actually appeared in their small tribe. You're lying. There are only a few God of Creation stage array masters in the Massacre Heavenly domain, and I have seen them before. If they have nothing to do, they will stay in the city. Why would they be willing to leave? Xiong Fei sneered as he dodged the tentacles around him. You'll find out very soon whether it's a God of Creation stage spell formation or not. Zhuowen clapped his hands. Instantly, the entire mansion surged with a suffocating and terrifying fluctuation. The fluctuation became more and more terrifying, and the purple tentacles in the room became denser and denser. In just an instant, the room was covered by countless purple tentacles. Xiong Fei, who was initially at ease, had nowhere to hide. He could only passively receive the attacks from the purple tentacles. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The moment the purple tentacles came into contact with Xiong Fei, they immediately dissipated and emitted a purple blade light. Xiong Fei obviously didn't expect the purple tentacles to have such a transformation. His abdomen was pierced by a blade light, and blood spurted out. Xiong Fei grimaced in pain, and there was a tinge of fear in his eyes. He didn't expect the formation to be so strange. The purple tentacles suddenly turned into a sharp blade light. If he hadn't reacted fast enough, the blade light wouldn't have just pierced through his abdomen. It would have pierced through his glabella. Bang, 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 bang. One after another, Xiong Fei was horrified to find that the purple tentacles in every corner of the room had all exploded and turned into countless blade lights. There were simply too many blade lights. They surrounded Xiong Fei in all directions, and all his blind spots were sealed. Xiong Fei's entire body trembled. He had no doubt that when all the blade lights shot towards him, he would have nowhere to hide. He would definitely die without a burial ground. No, spare my life. I am willing to recommend you to the God City. Xiong Fei shouted in fear. His voice was trembling. He knew that he could not block this attack. Other than begging for mercy, he had no other choice. Dom. Zhuowen's right index finger heavily knocked on the table. Instantly, the countless blade lights around him seemed to have stopped in time and stopped in their original positions. Plop! Xiong Fei sat on the floor. His forehead was filled with cold sweat. He was panting, and his heart was palpitating. Zhuowen stood up and waved his sleeves. All the blade lights around him disappeared, as though everything that happened just now was just an illusion. I like people who know how to adapt to circumstances. And don't even think of playing any tricks on me. Not only have I set up a large array in your mansion, but I have also set up a trap and kill array around your drift cloud tribe. I have set it up very covertly. Only those who are at the same level as me, or even better than me, can find out that I have set up a large array. If you want to play any tricks on me, I can totally turn your drift cloud tribe upside down. Zhuowen looked at Xiong Fei in front of him. His tone was calm, but his words were full of threats. Xiong Fei's heart was dead. It seemed that he was now a fish on the chopping board that could be slaughtered at any time if he dared to move. He was afraid that he would be slaughtered immediately and would also implicate the tribe behind him. Xiong Fei sighed softly. Who did he offend? He actually offended such a terrifying array master. Moreover, this person was definitely not an array master in the three god cities. He could have such a powerful array master, and he was not an array master in the god city. Could this person be a newcomer to the slaughter heavenly domain? At this moment, Xiong Fei was thinking a lot. He also thought of the ancestral barbarian army that he had sent out before, which was completely destroyed in the Tiani tribe. The reason why the ancestral barbarian army was completely wiped out seemed to be that there was an extremely terrifying large array in the Tiani tribe. And this large array might have something to do with this powerful array master in front of him. Your Excellency, don't worry. I dare not be disloyal. And you are such a powerful array master. I can't wait to curry favor with you. How dare I act recklessly? Xiong Fei continued. Although our big tribes are qualified to recommend people to the God City, every time we recommend people, we have to offer a large amount of jade stones in exchange for the qualification of a person. It has only been 20 years since our last recommendation. Now, the reserves of jade stones in our big tribes are still a lot less than the tribute requirement. So, Chapter 3125. Death Canyon. My lord, you probably don't understand God City. The Divine City is an existence that completely surpasses all the other tribes. The entire Divine City is surrounded by a huge formation that can attack the heavenly energy. In other words, the environment in the Divine City is similar to the outside world. It is a holy land where one can constantly absorb heavenly energy to cultivate. It is a place that countless cultivators in the slaughter heaven domain yearn for. The previous minister of the Flowing Cloud tribe, after gathering enough emeralds, entered the Divine City through the emeralds and settled down there. Speaking of the God City, Xiong Fei's eyes were filled with yearning. How many jade stones do we have to offer in order to recommend a person into the Divine City? Zhuowen asked with a frown. 10,000 emerald stones. Xiong Fei smiled bitterly. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Although he had only been in the massacre celestial domain for 1 or 2 days, he knew how rare jade stones were. Since the establishment of the Tiani tribe, after many years of operation, there were only a few hundred pieces of jade stone reserves in the tribe. It could be seen how difficult it was to collect jade stones. How many emerald stones does your drifting cloud tribe have in reserve? Zhuowen asked. Xiong Fei smiled bitterly and said, only about 3,000 jade stones. How long would it take for you to gather 10,000 emerald stones? Zhuowen asked in a low voice with an ugly expression. At least 30 years. Xiong Fei said. Zhuowen was silent. 30 years was too long. He couldn't wait that long. Is there any other way to enter the Divine City? If it really doesn't work, it should be possible to sneak in. Zhuowen said. Absolutely not. I don't know about the other god cities, but I know that it is impossible to sneak into Hongxian God City. Hongxian God City's walls are more than 30 meters tall, and the walls are covered with sharp blades that are more than 3 meters long. Other than that, the most powerful thing about Hongxian Divine City is the numerous Genesis grade defensive formations set up behind the high walls. According to what I've heard, there are 9 God of Creation stage defensive formations on the surface, all of which are connected to one another and complement one another. However, I have a feeling that there might be even more hidden formations. Other than the array, there are also the most elite soldiers patrolling the walls. The entire divine city is impregnable. Even if your array Tao standard is very high, I think it's not very possible for you to sneak in. Xiong Fei glanced at Zhuowen and said carefully. Zhuowen sighed in his heart. After Xiong Fei explained the situation, he had already given up on the idea of sneaking into the God City. God of Creation stage defensive formations weren't much of a problem for him, but it would still take him some time to break through them. Furthermore, the Massacre Heavenly Domain was completely restricted in the sky. He couldn't use a flying divine artifact to fly over the 30-meter-tall wall of Hongxian Divine City. He could only climb over it. The moment he climbed up the wall, he would probably be discovered by the people of God's City. Then he would be treated as an enemy and be surrounded by the people of God's City. Although Zhuowen had the Panga sacred body and many other trump cards, he did not dare to fight against the entire divine city alone. Moreover, this divine city was being maintained by the sky-reaching masters. In addition, there were many half-step sky-reaching masters and peak eternal overlords. The sky-reaching masters alone were enough for Zhuowen to deal with, not to mention the other experts. It seems that I can only obediently collect jade stones. Zhuowen frowned. With the drifting cloud tribe's speed of collecting jade stones, it would take at least 30 years. He definitely couldn't wait that long. You collect jade stones mainly by digging out the roots of the plants in the Massacre Heavenly Domain. Zhuowen recalled the process of Pang Yong and the others obtaining jade stones and asked. Xiong Fei shook his head and said, "The number of plants in the Massacre Heavenly Domain is the least. Collecting jade stones from plants is the safest place. Therefore, all tribes are basically looking for plant resources. This has led to the extinction of plants in the Massacre Heavenly Domain. Those who mainly obtain jade stones from plants are basically the weak tribes. For large tribes like ours, the main source of jade stones is from killing beasts. However, killing beasts are social animals, so they are basically in groups. When we are not killing beasts, we choose to hunt when there are fewer of them or when they are alone." At this point, Xiong Fei smiled bitterly and said, "But even so, every time we hunt beasts, we have a slim chance of survival. Although our drifting cloud tribe is a large tribe with thousands of people, we can't always hunt beasts. It's too exhausting. In a year, we only hunt beasts 4 times, once a season. Before each hunt, we have to make sufficient preparations." Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He asked, "Is there a place with the densest number of beasts around here? A place where thousands of beasts can appear all at once?" Xiong Fei nodded and said, "There is. 1 day's journey southeast of the Drifting Cloud tribe. There is a canyon. This canyon is called the Canyon of Death by the nearby tribes. This canyon is the largest gathering place of beasts. Someone once saw thousands of beasts rushing out of the Canyon of Death at the same time. There were even powerful beasts at the level of Creator. Has your tribe ever sent anyone into the Canyon of Death?" Zhuowen asked. Xiong Fei shook his head and said, "How is that possible? The Canyon of Death is too scary. Every time our Drifting Cloud tribe hunts, we deliberately avoid the Canyon of Death. Prepare some men. We will depart for the Canyon of Death immediately." Zhuowen's eyes flashed as he said calmly, "Ah!" Xiong Fei screamed and was completely stunned. He stared at Zhuowen as if he was wondering if Zhuowen had said something wrong. However, Zhuowen was calm and did not admit that he had said something wrong. Instead, he turned to look at Xiong Fei and said, "Didn't you hear what I said? I asked you to prepare some men to follow me to the Canyon of Death." Xiong Fei stuttered and said with a trembling voice, Sir, I should have told you how dangerous the Canyon of Death is. It is a terrifying place where thousands of beasts can appear at once. Even if everyone in the drifting cloud tribe rushes into the Canyon of Death, they will be easily crushed by those beasts in the end. No one will be left alive. I know, so are you done? Zhuowen looked at Xiong Fei calmly. His indifferent eyes made Xiong Fei's scalp tingle. I'm done. Xiong Fei lowered his head and did not dare to look at Zhuowen. Since you are done, why don't you go and prepare some men? Zhuowen said calmly. Xiong Fei lowered his head and sighed. He really did not want to go to the Canyon of Death and did not want his tribe to die. However, he did not dare to offend the person in front of him. Once he offended him, his tribe would still suffer. Chapter 31, 26. Shock and awe. Xiong Fei stood on a high platform in the square outside the Drift Cloud tribe. Nearly 100 people gathered below the platform. They were the most elite warriors in the Drift Cloud tribe. They were gathered by Xiong Fei, and they were all talking about it. The news of the fall of the ancestral barbarian army in the Tiani tribe had spread throughout the tribe. Now that Xiong Fei had gathered them again, everyone guessed that it was because of the ancestral barbarian land. Xiong Fei pressed his hands in front of him, indicating for everyone to be quiet. He then cleared his throat and said, I've gathered all of you here because I have something important to announce. Xiong Fei's eyes flickered, and he hesitated. Minister, what's the matter? Just tell us. There's no need to hide it from us. Below the high platform, the burly orc standing at the front said, casually. Xiong Fei coughed and said, I'm going to bring all of you to the Death Canyon to hunt the killer beasts. That's why I've gathered all of you here. So, before Xiong Fei could finish, there was an uproar below the platform. Many orcs thought they had misheard. What was wrong with Xiong Fei? How could he summon them to the Death Canyon? Was he sending them to their deaths? Minister, what do you mean by this? If you want us to fight with other tribes, we'll take the lead without hesitation. But you want us to go to the Death Canyon? Are you sending us to our deaths? The burly orc standing at the front spoke again. His eyes were full of confusion and anger. Xiong Fei smiled bitterly. In fact, he didn't want to go to the Death Canyon, but it wasn't up to him to decide. He knew that Zhuowen's formation skills were very high. He must be a god of formation master, since he could set up a Genesis-level killing formation. However, in the Death Canyon, a Genesis-grade formation wouldn't be able to withstand the rampaging slaughter beasts inside. Unless it was a creation-grade formation that was one grade higher than the Genesis grade, perhaps it would be able to withstand the attacks of the slaughter beasts inside the Death Canyon. However, Xiong Fei knew that there wasn't such a powerful god of formation master in the Massacre heavenly domain. Zhuowen was no exception. In his eyes, Zhuowen was at most a Genesis-level god of formation master. You must go to the Death Canyon. Otherwise, you will die right now. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded, causing the temperature of the entire square to drop. Many orcs quieted down and looked at the high platform. A human figure covered in black scales walked out from behind Xiong Fei. Of course, this human figure was Zhuowen. Hong Xian God City's territory was mostly inhabited by the alien tribes. To avoid being misunderstood by the alien tribes, he had displayed some of King Devourer's features. Zhuowen's dark golden eyes scanned the crowd coldly. In an instant, he released the bloodlines of the Devourer King and the Panga sacred body. An enormous aura that far exceeded that of an eternal lord swept through the plaza like a hurricane. Xiong Fei was the closest to Zhuowen. He groaned and involuntarily retreated, distancing himself from Zhuowen. The orcs below the platform were in an even worse state. Some orcs directly fell to the ground. Some orcs covered their heads, and moved away from the platform, while some orcs directly knelt on the ground and twitched. It's the aura of Lord Tongtian. It's so powerful. This person is actually Lord Tongtian. My lord, please forgive our mistakes. We didn't mean to offend you. The moment they felt this terrifying pressure, everyone was shocked. They subconsciously thought that Zhuowen was a supreme expert at the level of Lord Tongtian. They all knelt on the ground, their eyes filled with awe. Xiong Fei also knelt below the high platform, his eyes wide open. He felt extremely conflicted. He had just seen this person's terrifying array skills, and now he had dropped a bomb on him. This person was actually a Lord Tongtian expert. Although the aura exposed from Zhuowen's body was still that of an eternal lord, Xiong Fei's terrifying aura had completely destroyed his self-confidence. A mere eternal lord could have such a terrifying aura. This person must be an eternal lord expert who had concealed his cultivation. He had actually scolded and disdained such an expert. Thinking of this, Xiong Fei could not help but break out in a cold sweat and get goosebumps. Zhuowen withdrew his aura and looked around at the many obedient orcs below the high platform. He was quite satisfied. The Panga's sacred body was extraordinary. Although it was only at the late 6-star level, the Pangu's sacred body carried the Pangu's sacred body was not weaker than an ordinary Lord Tongtian. Of course, although his aura was not weak, his true strength was still inferior to that of a Lord Tongtian. He also knew that the rules of the Massacre Celestial Domain were very straightforward. If you showed your strength, you were a true expert. No one would disobey the will of a true expert. Now, does anyone still have any objections to going to Death Canyon? Zhuowen asked indifferently. Under the high platform, the orcs looked at each other. Suddenly, an orc at the back stood up. He lowered his head and did not dare to look at Zhuowen. He whispered, "My lord, can I withdraw?" Unfortunately, as soon as this orc finished speaking, a bloody hole exploded between his eyebrows, and he fell straight to the ground. Zhuowen folded his sleeves and said indifferently, "Does anyone else have any objections?" All the orcs were afraid, and no one dared to raise any objections. They all agreed to go to Death Canyon with Zhuowen. "All right, Xiong Fei, make the arrangements. We'll set off immediately. Don't worry. The reason why I asked you to follow me is not to charge into battle. Instead, I need you to help me clean up the corpses of the beasts, as well as the jade blood and jade stones in their bodies." Zhuowen said indifferently. Xiong Fei was surprised. He said, "Master Zhuo, do you mean you plan to go to Death Canyon alone?" "Yes," Zhuowen said noncommittally. Xiong Fei said seriously, "Master Zhuo, the environment in Death Canyon is worse than other places in the Massacre Celestial Domain. Not only is there no heavenly energy there, but it will also speed up the loss of heavenly energy in a cultivator's body. Even if you are an expert at the level of the Master of Heaven Ascension, the heavenly energy in your body will be completely exhausted in 2 hours in the Death Canyon," Zhuowen interrupted Xiong Fei. "I'll take care of this. You don't have to worry. You just have to do as I say." What a joke! Zhuowen's great world had already been opened by the mysterious stone. The heavenly Tao origin crystal inside could be taken out at any time. As long as the energy in his body was almost exhausted, he could take out the heavenly Tao origin crystal to replenish his energy. The worries of many cultivators in the Massacre Celestial Domain were nothing to Zhuowen. Chapter 31:27. Arrival at the entrance of the Drifting Cloud Tribe, Zhuowen looked at the hundreds of nervous orc elites in front of him. He leaped onto the dragon horse and said to Xiong Fei, who was also riding a dragon horse, "Let's go." Xiong Fei nodded excitedly. He rode on the obedient dragon horse and pulled the reins. The dragon horse galloped forward obediently. The dragon horse was one of the lowest killing beasts in the Massacre Sky domain. A dragon horse could only grow to the level of a heavenly Tao master. Some mutated dragon horses could grow to the level of a heavenly Tao master. However, this was already the peak of the dragon horse race. It was because the dragon horse was one of the weaker killing beasts. Moreover, its speed and endurance were terrifying. Therefore, it was the best choice to be a mount in many tribes in the Massacre Sky domain. However, even for the lowest killing beasts like the dragon horse, it was extremely difficult for the tribe experts to tame it. Moreover, they could not completely tame it. When they were riding it, they had to compete with the dragon horse. However, ever since Zhuowen took out the domestication elixir and let Xiong Fei swallow it, the dragon horse willingly became Xiong Fei's mount. This made Xiong Fei very excited. In the entire Drifting Cloud tribe, there were only 2 dragon horses. One was the one that Zhuowen was riding on, and the other was Xiong Fei. Zhuowen and Xiong Fei took the lead and deliberately controlled their speed. Behind them, the hundreds of orc elites ran and followed. As Zhuowen and Xiong Fei were trekking towards the Death Valley, an army gradually stopped 1,000 meters away from the Death Valley. There were 500 people in this army, and all of them were riding on dragon horses. They were a rare cavalry. If Xiong Fei saw this scene, he would be so shocked that his jaw would drop. The Drifting Cloud tribe only had 2 dragon horses. However, this army had 1 dragon horse for each person. How powerful would one need to be equipped with such high-level equipment? This army was made up of all kinds of mutated tribes, and all of them had powerful auras. The leader was covered with cold dragon scales. At the joints of his limbs, there were ferocious spikes that were blood-red in color. This person was obviously an expert from the dragon tribe. His powerful aura suppressed the dragon horse under him and made it tremble. Beside the dragon man was a young girl. The young girl's skin was as white as snow with a hint of rosy. Her slightly childish face revealed a peerless charm. If this young girl were to grow up for a few more years, she would definitely become a devastatingly beautiful woman. If it weren't for the 3 furry fox tails growing out of the young girl's tail, one would have thought that she was a human. The Dragon Clan expert looked at the pitch-black canyon that resembled the mouth of a giant beast and said solemnly, "Miss Mei-Su, this is the Death Canyon. You gathered 500 divine guards from the Divine City and brought me here. Is this Death Canyon the treasure you mentioned?" At this point, the Dragon Clan powerhouse's expression turned ugly. "Uncle Jiangyi, you know my talent. I have a special ability to sense jade stones. When we passed through the Death Canyon, I sensed a very strong jade stone aura in the canyon. I suspect that there might be a very large jadeite vein in this Death Canyon. Isn't our Hongxian God City lacking jade stones? Recently, Mother has been deeply troubled by this matter recently. As long as we can seize this jadeite vein, the Divine City's problem will be solved. Mother won't have to worry about jade stones anymore." Mei-Su's 3 foxtails swayed excitedly. Her pair of clear and beautiful eyes stared at the Death Canyon in front of her. Her eyes were filled with stars, and her face was filled with infatuation. "Miss, are you sure you didn't sense wrongly? Is there really a jadeite vein in the Death Canyon?" Jiang Ye's eyes were solemn. His strength was considered to be one of the top experts in the Massacre Heavenly Domain. He knew a lot of inside information. He knew that the jadeite in the Massacre Heavenly Domain didn't just come from killing beasts and plants. Most of it came from jadeite veins that were buried deep underground. However, these jadeite veins were basically controlled by the Divine City and treated as a secret. Many tribes didn't even know about the existence of jadeite veins. Jiang Yi believed in Meisu's special ability to find jadeite veins. Previously, Meisu had sensed several small jadeite veins under the control of Hongxian God City. This time, Meisu was extremely excited. The jadeite vein in the Death Canyon was definitely not small. When did I miss it? There's definitely a huge jadeite vein in the Death Canyon. As Meisu spoke, she exaggeratedly spread her jade-like hands in front of her and made a big gesture. The Death Canyon is too dangerous. We have to return to the Divine City and report to the City Lord first. Jiang Yi said solemnly. Meisu quickly shook her head and said, "Don't tell my mother." I snuck out with great difficulty just to secretly find the exact location of the jadeite vein. After I find the exact location, I'll tell my mother. This way, it'll be a surprise for her. However, Jiang Yi said solemnly, "Young miss, you might not know how terrifying this Death Canyon is. There are thousands of killer beasts here, and there are quite a few of them at the level of a creator. Apart from that, there are also terrifying creator-level killer beasts. If we were in the outside world, it wouldn't be a big deal for our army to rush into the Death Canyon. However, this is the massacre heavenly domain. We're different from these killing beasts. We can't afford to waste time here." Meisu pursed her lips and said, "Didn't I specially prepare a small recovery array for all of you? Relying on the small recovery array and the jadeite reserves, it's enough for all of you to recover 3 times. I've already prepared so much, yet Uncle Jiang Yi is still afraid. What a coward." Jiang Yi face-bombed. He really didn't know what to do with this little girl. This was his ancestor. When she was capricious, there was nothing he could do. "If all of you are too cowardly to go in, then I'll go in alone." Meisu was a little peeved. She pulled the reins, and the dragon horse under her charged towards the Death Canyon. Miss, Jiang Yi was scared out of his wits when he saw Meisu leading the charge. He hurriedly rushed forward, followed by the 500 cavalrymen behind him. One day later, Zhuowen rode on the dragon horse and stopped on a small slope. He narrowed his eyes as he looked at the canyon entrance that was about 1,000 meters ahead. It looked like a giant mouth. "Lord Zhuo, that's the Death Canyon. Are we really going to go in and hunt?" Xiong Fei rode on the dragon horse and came to Zhuowen's side. He looked at the canyon entrance in front of him and trembled with fear. The 100 or so beast men behind him were even worse. Their legs were weak. They were scared out of their wits even before they reached the Death Canyon. Oh, now that we're at the Death Canyon, there are still people who want to run away? Of course, you can choose to run away, but I can also choose to be merciless. Chapter 31:28. Entering Death Canyon Thump. Thump. Zhuowen pulled the reins and stopped outside Death Canyon. The entrance to Death Canyon was huge. The cliffs on both sides of the canyon were at least 300 meters tall. They towered in front of Zhuowen like the giant mouth of an ancient beast. Zhuowen's gaze passed through the entrance of the canyon and looked into the darkness inside. His expression turned grave. The dragon horse under him was restless. Its 4 hooves scratched the ground, and its breathing was heavy. Xiong Fei and the elite beast men behind him were trembling. "So quiet! There are no killing beasts around Death Canyon." Zhuowen looked around and raised his eyebrows with a puzzled expression. Today is indeed strange. Although the killing beasts are mainly concentrated in Death Canyon, there are still some killing beasts outside the canyon. But today, there are no killing beasts. Xiong Fei rode the dragon horse to Zhuowen's side and said in surprise, "Look at the ground. There are very obvious hoof prints. Furthermore, these hoof prints are very clear. Not long before us, there should be a group that entered the Death Canyon before us." Zhuowen jumped down from the dragon horse and squatted down to observe carefully. He noticed that there were still faint hoof prints on the ground. In a desert, footprints would not last long. Since he could find hoof prints at the entrance of Death Canyon, there must be someone who entered before them. Also, the time interval between them was not long. They are all dragon horse hoof prints. This is a group of cavalry in the Massacre Heavenly Domain. Only the Divine City can have cavalry. Xiong Fei also jumped down from the dragon horse and observed carefully. People from the Divine City? They also entered Death Canyon to kill beasts? Zhuowen asked in surprise. Xiong Fei smiled bitterly. I don't think this possibility is high. The Divine City collects jade stones from the various tribes every year. It is enough to maintain the daily consumption of the Divine City. There is no need to enter Death Canyon, a gathering place for killing beasts. It is too dangerous. It seems that the killing beasts outside the canyon were killed by this group of cavalry. Zhuowen guessed. Sir, what should we do now? Xiong Fei looked fearfully at the pitch-black canyon entrance. His legs went soft. He was really unwilling to enter. Wait for my orders at the entrance of the canyon. I'll go in first. Zhuowen jumped onto the dragon horse and looked at Xiong Fei and the others indifferently. He did not wait for them to agree. His legs squeezed the horse's belly, and the dragon horse rushed into the canyon. Xiong Fei and the rest stared dumbfoundedly at Zhuowen, who had disappeared at the entrance of the canyon. They never would have thought that Zhuowen actually planned to enter the Death Canyon alone. At the same time, they sighed in relief. They felt like they had been saved from death's door. Minister, are we really going to wait for that lord at the entrance of the canyon? It's not that I'm discouraging, but no matter how powerful that lord is, he'll probably die after entering the Death Canyon. In the team, the strongest and tallest beast man walked forward and whispered to Xiong Fei. Xiong Fei scolded coldly. Can't you see that Master is taking care of us? With his strength, forcing us to enter the Death Canyon is just a matter of a sentence. However, he did not do so. Instead, he went in alone to check out the situation. Xiong Fei took out a bronze bell and said, We will wait at the entrance of the canyon for 10 days and 10 nights. If we do not receive Master's orders after 10 days, we will go back the way we came. When Xiong Fei said that, the beastmen did not dare to say anything. The moment he entered the canyon, Zhuowen could clearly feel that there was a powerful cold air lingering in the canyon. The outside world was scorching hot, but the inside of the canyon was cold. It was like ice and fire at the same time. Roar. The moment Zhuowen entered the canyon, a violent roar rang in his ears. Following that was the terrifying sound of something breaking through the air and a black shadow that was like black lightning. Zhuowen remained calm. His right hand formed a fist and fiercely punched to the left. The Devourer King's devouring power covered the surface of his fist. Puchi! With a punch, the powerful devouring power exploded. The black shadow whimpered and was directly smashed to the ground. Zhuowen finally saw the true face of the black shadow that had ambushed him. It was a black dog that was half the height of a human. The black dog's muscles were bulging, and its body was covered in stone-like scales. Its eyes were crimson red. At this moment, the black dog was in a miserable state. Its chest was pierced through, under the effect of the devouring power. Its body quickly shriveled up and turned into a dried corpse. Roar, roar, roar. After Zhuowen killed the black dog with a punch, he immediately noticed that in the darkness in front of the canyon, there were pairs of blood-red eyes appearing one after another. The ferocious growls of the black dogs rose and fell in front of him. Zhuowen's eyes were calm. The black dog's strength was not high. They were around the level of a Dao Yuan master. However, there were a lot of them. There were at least 100 of them as far as the eye could see. If Zhuowen's macro world had not been opened, nearly 100 Dao Yuan Master Black Dogs would have consumed at least 30% of its energy. However, he did not have such worries now. There were enough heavenly law origin crystals in the macro world for him to squander as he wished. Boom! Zhuowen took a step forward and charged into the darkness in front of him. Dense devouring vortexes covered his body. Zhuowen's king, devourer bloodline cultivation, was at the eternal overlord realm. His battle strength was much stronger than ordinary eternal overlords. Without considering the consumption of energy, the black dogs were no threat to him at all. Bang! 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 Zhuowen charged into the black dogs and threw out punch after punch. Endless shadows of his fists flickered in the void, like ghosts. Each punch carried a powerful devouring power. As long as it landed on the black dogs, they would be severely injured and then devoured into dried corpses. The black dogs seemed to know no fear, and kept charging at Zhuowen. When Zhuowen killed the last black dog with a punch, he took out a bronze bell from his sleeve. This bronze bell was one of the methods of communication in the massacre heavenly domain. Within 10 kilometers, shaking the bronze bell would cause another bronze bell to resonate. Zhuowen and Xiongfei had agreed that as long as he shook the bronze bell in the canyon, Xiongfei would have to bring people into the canyon. Ding, ding, ding. Zhuowen shook the bronze bell. Soon, Xiongfei rode a dragon horse and led a group of beastmen into the canyon. They immediately saw the black dog corpses all over the ground. In front of the corpses, they saw Zhuowen standing tall. "My lord, did you take care of all these?" Xiongfei looked around and was especially shocked when he saw that Zhuowen's face was not red nor was he panting. The black dogs were not very strong, so Xiongfei could easily take care of them. However, it was impossible for him to kill nearly 100 black dogs in one go. In Death Canyon, the heavenly law energy was drained too quickly. He could not support killing all the black dogs. Take out the jade stones from the black dogs. I will set up a defensive formation here to protect your safety. Chapter 31:29. Cavalrymen of the divine city Xiongfei and the rest quickly took out the jade stones from the black hounds and handed them over to Zhuowen. Zhuowen kept the jade stones in the parallel world. When the mysterious stone sensed the aura of the jade stones, it was extremely excited and wanted to absorb the energy of the jade stones. Unfortunately, it was stopped by Zhuowen. He was collecting jade stones to collect 10,000 jade stones to enter the divine city. This was too important to him, and he did not want the jade stones to be absorbed by the mysterious stone. The mysterious stone was very intelligent. When it saw that Zhuowen had stopped it, it flew around in the parallel world like a child throwing a tantrum. Zhuowen shook his head helplessly and ignored the willful mysterious stone. He looked around. When he entered the canyon, he was attacked by the black hounds, so he did not observe the surroundings carefully. Now that he looked carefully, he realized that the canyon was very spacious. The walls on both sides were dark brown, and there were complicated marks on the surface of the walls. Other than that, Zhuowen also found the bodies of other kill beasts besides the black hounds. However, the number of these kill beasts was much less than the number of kill beasts that Zhuowen had killed. It was obvious that the cavalrymen who came in first did not stay here for long. Instead, they moved forward quickly. These kill beasts must have been in the way of the cavalrymen and were directly crushed to death. Zhuowen also realized that the jade stones in the bodies of the kill beasts that were crushed to death by the cavalrymen were still there. The cavalrymen did not dig out the jade stones in the bodies of the kill beasts, but hurried past. It seems that the cavalrymen of the divine city did not enter the Death Canyon to kill beasts. Zhuowen mumbled to himself. He was deep in thought. He guessed that there must be some secret in the depths of the Death Canyon. Otherwise, the cavalrymen of the Divine City would not have spent so much effort to enter the depths of the Death Canyon. Xiong Fei had also said that the dangers of the Death Canyon were so dangerous that even the cavalrymen of the Divine City could be wiped out if they were to face it alone. Under normal circumstances, the cavalrymen of the Divine City would not enter the Death Canyon fearlessly because there were no benefits. However, this time, the Divine City's cavalry had charged into the depths of the Death Canyon. There must be some benefits that exceeded his expectations. You guys stay inside this formation. I'll continue forward and wait for my signal. Don't worry, you are very safe inside this formation. The slaughter beasts won't be a threat to you. After Zhuowen instructed Xiong Fei and the rest, he left the array and continued to move forward. Before entering the Death Canyon, Zhuowen had already planned it out. Every time they advanced a certain distance in the canyon, he would finish off the nearby killing beasts and set up a large formation. As long as he encountered an irresistible danger somewhere in the canyon, he could retreat and use the array formation he had set up to block the danger ahead. Next, Zhuowen followed his plan and advanced deeper into the canyon step by step. According to Xiong Fei's description, the deeper one went into the Death Canyon, the more beasts there would be. However, as he continued to go deeper, he realized that the number of killer beasts was decreasing, but the number of killer beasts' corpses was increasing. He knew that these killer beasts were killed by the Divine City's cavalry, who had entered before him. Moreover, the killer beasts that were killed by the Divine City's cavalry had not been touched at all. The jade stones were all taken away by Xiong Fei and the rest. Xiong Fei and the rest were overjoyed. This was simply a good thing that had fallen from the sky. They never expected that the Divine City's cavalry would clear the path for them, saving them a lot of effort. When Zhuowen arrived at the center of the canyon, not only were there killer beast corpses, but there were also Divine City's cavalry's corpses. The cavalry and their mounts had all fallen together. Their corpses were gnawed beyond recognition. The scene was bloody and mournful. Moreover, the killer beasts in the center of the canyon were much stronger than before. Although there weren't many killer beasts left, they were all very powerful. Zhuowen spent some effort to finish off the remaining killer beasts in the center of the canyon. Ringing the bronze bell, Xiong Fei led the elite beast men to the center. Xiong Fei's expression was grave. He also saw the fallen cavalry and said in a deep voice, "Looks like the Divine City's cavalry has started to fall. The deeper we go into the Death Canyon, the more terrifying it is." "My lord, are we still going to go deeper?" Xiong Fei looked at Zhuowen with anticipation. In fact, he was hoping that Zhuowen would retreat. The Death Canyon was too terrifying. Even though he knew that Zhuowen wasn't simple, he still didn't have much confidence in the latter. Zhuowen used the Beast Bone formation plate to set up a Destiny-level defensive formation. He looked at Xiong Fei and asked, "How many emerald stones have we collected so far?" Xiong Fei said, excitedly, "We have collected more than 1,300 emerald stones." Zhuowen nodded. They had only seen a few hundred killer beasts so far. The reason why they could collect so many emerald stones was because the stronger the killer beasts were, the more emerald stones they would have in their bodies. Zhuowen had seen Xiong Fei fishing out 10 emerald stones from a killer beast that was over 10 feet tall. Of course, the probability of obtaining so many emerald stones from a single killer beast was very low. Zhuowen had only seen it once. "We still have to go deeper. We are still far from our target." Zhuowen looked calm. He ignored Xiong Fei's bitter face and continued to charge forward. In the next section of the road, the number of corpses of the cavalrymen and killer beasts increased. The traces of battle around them also became more terrifying. It wasn't hard for Zhuowen to imagine how tragic the battle between the cavalrymen and the killer beasts was. When Zhuowen reached 2/3 of the way through the canyon, he suddenly stopped, his gaze falling on a few hundred meters ahead. There, countless black shadows were like dark clouds, shrouding the area in front of them. Zhuowen realized that the black shadows were actually killer beasts with terrifying strength. There were too many of them. They formed a cylindrical shape and surrounded the area in front of them. It was as if they were collectively attacking something in that area. Zhuowen moved forward slowly. When he got closer, he realized that the crazy killer beasts were besieging a group of cavalrymen. There were about 100 cavalrymen. In front of the cavalrymen, an old man and a young girl were waving the weapons in their hands. The 100 cavalrymen, with the two of them in the center, formed a fan-shaped formation and defended against the attacks of the killer beasts. The killer beasts seemed to have gone crazy. They turned into terrifying black shadows and attacked the cavalrymen without fear of death. Zhuowen could clearly see that the cavalrymen were completely suppressed by the killer beasts. Chapter 31:30. Demonic Ape Mei Su's face turned pale as she looked at the frenzied killing beasts in all directions. Jiang Ye's expression was ugly. He swung his spear and a strong gale swept out, smashing the heads of the killing beasts. Jiang Ye's strength was the strongest among the cavalry, but he was also gasping for breath. He had used up a lot of his energy on the way here. Although the cavalry was equipped with a recovery array, the deeper they went, the more terrifying the killing beasts were. Sometimes the recovery speed was much slower than the consumption speed. This had resulted in the loss of 500 cavalrymen, leaving them with only 100. Miss, we have only entered 2/3 of the Death Valley, and we have already encountered the demonic ape. We can't go any deeper. Let's retreat. Jiang Yi looked at the helpless Mei Su and advised her in a deep voice. Mei Su was so anxious that she was about to cry. She sobbed, "Uncle Jiang, I am sorry. I have underestimated the Death Valley. Let's retreat now." Jiang Yi looked at the anxious Mei Su and sighed in his heart. Before entering the Death Valley, he had warned Mei Su about the terror of the Death Valley. It was best not to go in unless it was a last resort. Unfortunately, Mei Su was too stubborn and didn't listen to his advice. However, this was also good. After this battle, Jiang Yi believed that Mei Su would truly grow. However, the price of this growth was too high. It was the price of sacrificing 500 elite cavalrymen. Everyone listen up. Set up the array and retreat. Jiang Yi suddenly roared. His roar was as loud as thunder. The cavalrymen who were originally in despair were now in high spirits. They had long wanted to retreat, but they didn't dare to mention it before Jiang Yi gave the order. Now that Jiang Yi had given the order, they were overjoyed and full of energy. Zhuowen hid in the shadow of the cliff 100 meters away. He had also noticed that the cavalrymen had begun to retreat. It seems like the cavalrymen are after something in the deepest part of the Death Valley. However, they have suffered too many losses, so they don't plan to go deeper. Instead, they plan to go back the way they came. Zhuowen muttered to himself. He had set up a powerful array along the way. Without his permission, the cavalrymen wouldn't be able to leave the Death Valley. He was considering whether to open the array to the cavalrymen. After all, he wasn't related to the cavalrymen. If he opened the array, the cavalrymen would seize the opportunity to take down Xiong Fei and the others. Let Xiong Fei and the others retreat from the Death Valley first. Zhuowen took out a bronze bell and shook it rhythmically. The bell-shook bell could transmit several signals, such as advance, retreat, stand by, and so on. Go. What he was doing now was giving the order to retreat of the Death Valley and the Death Valley and the Death Valley. With his strength and recovery ability, he was confident that he could explore the deepest part of the Death Canyon. If there were really dangers that he couldn't fight against, he could just retreat, compared to the other cultivators in the slaughter domain. Moreover, his great world stored a large number of restorative divine pills and heavenly Tao origin crystals, so the restrictions in the slaughter heaven domain were not that great for him. Zhuo suddenly stopped in his tracks. He noticed a deep gaze coming from the other side of the cliff. It was a pair of scarlet eyes filled with brutality. Zhuowen's heart sank when he saw the bloodshot eyes. He knew he had been discovered. The owner of the bloodshot eyes was also a devil ape. However, this devil ape was twice the size of the other devil apes. Its entire body was like steel and emitted a cold glow. The moment Zhuowen saw the devil ape, he knew that it was the leader of this group of devil apes. Suddenly, the huge devil ape roared into the sky. Then, more devil apes jumped out from the walls on both sides of the valley. These devil apes landed in front of the cavalrymen like ghosts. After the leader of the devil apes summoned more devil apes, it gave Zhuowen a mocking look. Then, it ignored Zhuowen and roared, ordering the devil apes to attack the cavalrymen. Does this bastard think I'm already a turtle in a jar? So it doesn't plan to deal with me first. Instead, it wants to get rid of the cavalrymen. Zhuowen muttered to himself. He knew what the leader of the devil apes was trying to do. The devil ape leader sent out most of the devil apes to block the entrance of the canyon. This was the only way to prevent the invaders from leaving the canyon. The rest would be at the mercy of the devil apes. Interesting. The leader of the devil apes is looking down on me. It thinks I can't do anything by myself. How dare it ignore me? Zhuowen looked at the devilish ape leader with interest, a trace of curiosity in his eyes. Xiong Fei once said that slaughter beasts were exotic beasts that only knew how to kill and didn't have much intelligence. However, the leader of the devil apes was obviously enlightened. Its intelligence was not inferior to an ordinary person. It even knew how to give orders and control the direction of the devil apes. On the other side, Jiang Yi and Mei Su's faces were completely pale. They looked at the increasing number of devil apes in front of them with a trace of despair in their eyes. They had already reached their limit. Now that the number of devil apes had increased, it was impossible for them to stop them. Moreover, the energy in their bodies was almost depleted. Although the recovery array was constantly replenishing their energy, it would still take some time for them to fully recover. However, they obviously didn't have that much time now. Uncle Jiang, what should we do now? Why are there so many devil apes all of a sudden? Mei Su was already crying as she sobbed. Jiang Yi turned his head to look at the cliff behind them. He also noticed the devil ape with a terrifying body. He sighed and said, "Our luck is really bad. We encountered a group of slaughter beasts with a slaughter beast commander. A slaughter beast commander is very rare among the slaughter beasts. Once it appears, it will be able to command all the slaughter beasts of the same race. Moreover, a slaughter beast commander is enlightened. It's very intelligent, and its intelligence is not inferior to that of a human. With a slaughter beast commander leading a group of slaughter beasts, we can't escape. We can only fight to the death." Jiang Ye's eyes were filled with disappointment. However, when he looked at Mei Su, his disappointment was replaced by determination. Mei Su was the direct descendant of the city lord of Hongxian Divine City. She had a special meaning to the city lord. This time, even if he had to risk his life, Jiang Yi would bring Mei Su out of the Death Canyon. "Young mistress, follow me closely. I will definitely bring her out of here." Jiang Yi held Mei Su's hand and said in a low voice. Mei Su could feel Jiang Ye's emotions. Her beautiful eyes narrowed, and she whispered, "Uncle Jiang, is this the only way we can break through? Is there no other way?" Chapter 31. An arrow. What's the plan? Mei Su asked Jiang Yi, with a glimmer of hope in her beautiful eyes. The reason why these devil apes are attacking us crazily and cooperating so well is mainly because the leader is commanding them from behind. As long as we can find the leader and kill it, the group of devil apes will fall into chaos, and we'll have a chance to break out. Unfortunately, it's almost impossible. The leader is too far away from us, and there's a group of devil apes between us. Jiang Yi shook his head and smiled bitterly. If he went all out, there was a high chance that he could get close to the leader, but he wasn't confident that he could kill it. The leader of the devil apes was a terrifying existence at the peak of the creation realm. Even if Jiang Yi was at the peak of the creation realm and in an environment where there was no lack of heavenly Tao energy, it would still be difficult to kill it. Needless to say, in an environment like Death Canyon, where heavenly Tao energy was even more scarce, Jiang, you would probably be exhausted after trying so hard to get close to the leader of the devil apes. Facing the leader of the devil apes would only result in his defeat. Mei Su also realized that Jiang Ye's plan was too difficult. Her beautiful eyes drooped, and she smiled bitterly. "Uncle Jiang, are we going to die here today?" Jiang Yi was silent. In his opinion, this was inevitable. There were too many devil apes around them, and their cavalry had almost reached their limit. The enemy was strong, and they were weak. The final result was self-evident. Uft, uft, uft. Suddenly, shrill screams came from the front. The devil apes blocking their way had gone crazy, and they charged into the cavalry, almost risking their lives to injure them. Instantly, the cavalry's casualties increased. Many of them didn't even have time to react before they were torn to pieces by the devil ape's ferocious claws. For a moment, the cavalry began to retreat. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The devil apes that had been surrounding them came forward and completely surrounded Mei Su, Jiang Yi, and the others. Jiang Yi, Mei Su, and the others were all pale, and their eyes were filled with despair. Roar! Hanging above the cliff, the demon ape leader's scarlet eyes erupted with a cruel, bloody light. It raised its head and howled. Its voice was distant and long, and it even contained a ghostly mournfulness and strangeness. Under the howl of the devil ape leader, all the devil apes in the canyon roared towards the sky, as if they were celebrating their impending victory. Pucci! However, the demonic ape leader's howl only lasted for a short, while before its majestic howl turned into a blood-curdling scream. A streak of blood-red light streaked across the sky and slammed into the ape leader's chest. It sent the ape leader flying and embedded itself into the wall behind it. Pained cries continuously rang out. The group of devil apes that had been roaring in unison stopped, as if they had been slapped in the face. They stared dumbfoundedly at the devil ape leader that had let out a miserable cry. At the top of the canyon, the chest of the devilish ape leader had been pierced by a blood arrow, and it was nailed to the wall. The devilish ape leader continued to struggle, but it couldn't get rid of the blood arrow. It could only passively hang on the canyon wall like a clown for everyone to watch. Mei Su, Jiang Yi, and the others were also stunned. They originally thought that the devil ape leader had issued a final order for the group of devil apes to launch an all-out attack and completely annihilate them. They didn't expect that such an unforeseen event would occur. "What the hell are you roaring for? You're so annoying. I can endure it if you're the only one roaring. Why did you order all the devil apes to roar with you? Are you trying to break my eardrums?" A somewhat impatient voice was transmitted over the originally stunned group of people, and the group of devil apes discovered that a tall figure had walked out from the shadows of the rock wall a few hundred meters in front of them. It was a young man with a calm expression, holding a blood-red longbow in his left hand. This person was Zhuowen. Originally, he didn't want to meddle in other people's business, and planned to go deeper into the Death Canyon. After all, most of the devil apes were attracted by Jiang Yi and the others, which created an opportunity for Zhuowen. However, the devilish ape leader secretly summoned other devil apes to guard the entrance to the depths of the Death Canyon, eyeing Zhuowen covetously. He knew that the devilish ape leader had no intention of letting him go. He was afraid that after Jiang Yi and the others were killed, he would immediately be besieged by these devil apes. Since they would have to fight sooner or later, Zhuowen thought that it would be better to take the initiative and get rid of the devilish ape leader first. Therefore, he took out the Ho-E Divine Bow immediately. The strength of this devilish ape leader was indeed terrifying. It should have the battle strength of a peak creation realm expert. Zhuowen didn't dare to be careless, so he took out the Ho-E Divine arrow and shot it at the devilish ape leader. At that time, the devilish ape leader was howling towards the sky and didn't pay attention to Zhuowen at all. Therefore, it was directly pierced by the arrow. Logically speaking, with the power of the Ho-E Divine arrow, this arrow should have been able to completely tear the devilish ape leader apart. However, the result was that although the devilish ape leader was seriously injured, it actually didn't die. The power of the Ho-E Divine arrow has been greatly weakened in the Death Canyon. Zhuowen's eyes were solemn. He knew that it wasn't that the devilish ape leader was tough, but that the power of the Ho-E Divine arrow had been weakened. If they were in the outside world, the devilish ape leader would have died long ago. There wouldn't be any room for struggle. Roar! The devilish ape leader roared furiously and stared at Zhuowen as if it wanted to tear Zhuowen apart with its gaze. After the devilish ape leader roared, the group of devilish apes, who were originally in a daze, immediately moved. All the devil apes present rushed towards Zhuowen as if they had gone mad. Even the devilish apes that were blocking in front of the cavalrymen directly abandoned the cavalrymen and rushed towards Zhuowen. Jiang Yi, Mei Su, and the others were stunned. They didn't expect the situation to develop to this point. The devilish apes actually abandoned them just like that. Miss, this is a good opportunity. Let's go. Jiang Yi recovered from his shock and revealed an ecstatic expression. He hurriedly pulled Mei Su and led the rest of the cavalrymen to escape towards the entrance of the canyon. Uncle Jiang, what about that person? Mei Su turned around and looked at the figure that was surrounded by countless devilish apes and couldn't help but ask, Miss, don't worry about him. This is our best chance to escape. That person is dead. We can't save him. Jiang Yi glanced at Zhuowen with a complicated expression. He naturally guessed Mei Su's meaning and said in a deep voice. Mei Su revealed a trace of pity, but she didn't say anything and remained silent. What Jiang Yi said was true. The cavalrymen of the Divine City were no match for the devilish apes. Chapter 3132. Siege Roar. Roar. The ferocious roars of the devil apes came from all directions, shaking one's eardrums and sounding extremely harsh. Zhuowen stood alone in the same place, his body ramrod straight, like a towering banner that would never fall. Are you trying to suppress me with numbers? Zhuowen licked his lips. He looked around at the endless stream of devil apes, his eyes full of fighting spirit. A terrifying aura that could shake the heavens and earth surged out of his body. From afar, one could see that Zhuowen's entire body was emitting a crystal-clear light that flickered like a crystal. At this moment, Zhuowen did not hold back. He completely unleashed the power of his late-stage six-star Pango's sacred body. These devil apes were not simple. Each of them had the strength of a creator. The leader of the devil apes was even stronger. It was a terrifying existence at the peak of the creator realm. Zhuowen did not dare to only use the King Devourer bloodline to face the enemy. That was simply courting death. Puff! Zhuowen's right palm suddenly reached forward and grabbed the head of the devil ape that was charging at the front. He squeezed it hard, and a terrifying power erupted. The devil ape did not even have the chance to scream before its head was crushed by Zhuowen. It died instantly. Swoosh, swoosh. The moment Zhuowen squeezed the devil ape to death, 7 or 8 devil apes immediately attacked Zhuowen from all directions. However, the moment the attacks landed on Zhuowen's body, a strange space-time distortion energy appeared. The attacks of the 7 to 8 devil apes immediately stopped. Their scarlet eyes were filled with confusion. They did not understand why their attacks could not be launched. They stopped in midair. Destiny space-time kill. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. The space-time distortion power around his body was suddenly filled with blazing purple light. Next, the power of space-time distortion continued to evolve, eventually transforming into a vast, boundlessly surging purple river. This purple river contained a mysterious power that could defy fate. The purple river swept out, and the 8 devil apes were immediately swept away. When the devil apes reappeared, they seemed to have fainted and fell to the ground in the distance. Their auras had completely disappeared. The strange thing was that these demonic apes didn't have any injuries on their bodies, but they died just like that. Whoosh, whoosh. The purple river became more and more turbulent, circling around Zhuowen like a huge piece of purple silk dancing in the air in a circular posture. All of the devilish apes that pounced on him were swept away by the purple river and disappeared without a trace. The wheel of fate of these devil apes had been destroyed by the fate space-time annihilation. Without fate, their souls had dissipated. There was no difference between being alive and being dead. Zhuowen's face was incomparably pale. This destiny space-time kill sacred art had a terrifying consumption of energy. Moreover, he was in this harsh environment of Death Canyon. The heavenly Tao energy in his body was being consumed at an extremely fast rate. Therefore, the moment he used Destiny Space-Time Annihilation, he took out piles of supreme-grade heavenly Tao origin crystals from the macro world and absorbed the heavenly Tao energy in them like a whale sucking in water. At this moment, Zhuowen was in the center of the purple river. He slowly raised his head and looked at the devil ape leader pinned to the rock wall by Ho Yi's divine arrow. His eyes revealed a trace of coldness. He slowly stepped forward and walked toward the devil ape leader. The terrifying purple river continued to expand and spread around him. Moreover, extremely terrifying purple waves surged within the purple river. Every wave could sweep away a devil ape that got close, completely strangling it to death. However, the surrounding devil apes didn't know fear. They continued to rush forward one after another, wanting to completely kill Zhuowen. Unfortunately, the devil apes couldn't break the defensive range of Destiny Space-Time Annihilation at all. Uncle Jiang, look, that young man. Among the cavalrymen of the Divine City, Mei Su's cute ears twitched. She couldn't help but turn her head to look at Zhuowen. She saw a scene that she would never forget for the rest of her life. The young man, who they thought would die without a doubt, was now surrounded by a raging purple river. Countless devil apes around were swept away after rushing into the purple river. They fell to the ground with their bodies intact, but their auras were completely gone. They were completely dead. The young man, on the other hand, was like a demon god. He slowly walked through the crowd of devil apes, safe and sound. On the other hand, the devil apes that wanted to harm him were all dead. What a powerful divine ability! This young man is not simple. Jiang Yi also stopped and looked at Zhuowen. His eyes couldn't help but widen. However, Jiang Yi soon revealed a puzzled look and muttered to himself, such a powerful divine ability must consume a lot of heavenly Tao energy. This young man won't be able to last long. The end result will be the same. He won't be able to last long. Mei Su's beautiful eyes flickered. She gritted her teeth and said, "Uncle Jiang, we were able to escape because of this young man. How about we go and help him?" Jiang Yi shook his head and said, "Miss, we are not completely out of danger yet. If we go and help him, I'm afraid we will die here together with him. Let's go now." Mei Su couldn't bear it. She said with tears in her beautiful eyes, "Uncle Jiang, if it weren't for this young man, we wouldn't have been able to escape. Now he is trapped in the devil apes. Are we just going to watch him die?" Jiang Yi sighed and said, "Miss, we are in a terrible state now. What can we do if we go? We will only be sending ourselves to death." "Uncle Jiang, I'm not sending you to your deaths. I'm going in this time. Don't follow me." Mei Su was silent for a while. Suddenly, her 3 pure white tails emitted a faint light. Then, Mei Su disappeared from the spot as if she had teleported. When she reappeared, she was already in the midst of the devil apes. "Soul Raid, Miss, you—" Jiang Ye's expression changed when he saw Mei Su teleport into the midst of the devil apes. Soul Raid was the innate divine ability of the 9-tailed fox clan. Those who truly possessed the bloodline of the 9-tailed fox clan could instantly release their soul. The soul was formless and intangible, like a phantom. It could not be touched or captured. Moreover, it could move faster than the speed of sound and break through any obstacles. The more tails a 9-tailed fox had, the more times they could release their soul. The maximum number of times they could release their soul was 9 times. Mei Su possessed the powerful bloodline of the 9-tailed fox clan. Naturally, she possessed such a powerful, innate divine ability. However, Mei Su's cultivation was not high. She had only grown 3 tails, so she could only use Soul Raid 3 times. Moreover, after using it 3 times, Mei Su would be exhausted and unable to move. She would need to recuperate for a long time to recover